Okay, perfect. All right, so we are heading on to our next segment. So we do have our guest speaker here. I'm super excited. His name is Mr. Brian Dorsey, and he is the founder of the excuse me, of the funding playbook. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Of the funding playbook. So, Mr. Brian Dorsey, he has over a decade of experience. He has helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I think thousands at this point, of business owners get the funding that they need through their entities, right? So it's all about OPM, other people's money. And so he has established so many banking relationships that he knows the ins and outs of how to get you the money that you need. Okay, and so that's why he is here to educate you guys today, because it's so important for you not to use your own money for you, but for you to leverage your business credit and for you to use the bank's money. Okay, so with that being said, I want to hand it over to Mr. Brian Dorsey. Thank you so much for coming and agreeing to speak to the community today.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All right. Always a pleasure to be here. Man, I am so excited. As always, I've been here for a number of years and you guys learn a lot of information being in this community. So always just such a privilege to come back and being able to give back. A couple things. So today we are going to talk all about business funding. Now, a couple prefaces I want to do as as we do go through this. So a couple things. I know you guys are learning about trust. That's amazing. I highly recommend leveraging trust. Now, the first thing I want to preface is I know this is a trust class. Now, the thing is that Christina taught me, I operate in private trust, right? So a couple things I want to preface is that the first thing I want to let you know, it is absolutely possible to get a trust funded. Now, trust funds are a little bit different. They work a little bit different. So today, we're going to talk about funding, but I'm going to teach you how to be able to keep your trust private, leverage state entities like LLCs, corporations, being able to leverage funding, business capital in the best interest of the trust. So I'm a visual person and I'm going to share a presentation. If you do check the chat, I did put a PDF copy so you can have it. You can follow along with me. I just wanted to make sure that you had it as well. Now, I'm a visual person, so I'm going to share my screen. I want to make sure that you guys see it, and then we're going to get this process started. So you should be able to see my screen as of right now. Can someone let me know just by putting a 1 in the chat?
Yes, yes.
All right, perfect. So today, you guys are in for something special. I'm going to make business funding really simple. I'm going to take this really complex topic, and over the next like 30, 45 minutes, we're going to fly through this. You guys are going to get a lot of great information. So this is the Funding Playbook Business Masterclass. Now, before I get started, I always do have to do a little disclaimer. So this presentation is for general education purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. You need to always consult a qualified professional for guidance for your specific situation. I want to let you guys know this is great general information. In all the years that I've been doing funding and dealing with funding, there is no two funding deals that are alike. Business funding is a moving target. So the circumstances for your specific situation is going to matter, but this is great general information. Now, next thing, we cannot guarantee results. I can never guarantee results. I am not the bank. I am not the underwriter. I can only teach you how to operate within this system. So while results are not guaranteed, by following these strategies and data points shared here, we will help you position yourself with the highest probability of an approval, right? So now that that's out the way, we can start talking about some business funding, right? So before we even take the next couple minutes, I want to and go over this topic. I want to talk about why the benefits of business funding, why it even matters, right? So the first thing is that you deserve funding that matches your vision. So when it comes to businesses, as you guys have learned through here, entities get what is called an EIN, an entity identification number, right? Or employer identification number, whatever you prefer, right? Now, the next thing is that when you understand business funding versus personal funding is that each business gets its own EIN. You as a person only get one social security number. So understand this, your EIN in every business that you have is your gateway because it's treated as its own credit identity. The other thing when it comes to business funding, especially compared to personal funding, is that it unlocks higher limits without risking your personal profile. And you want to be able to protect your personal credit by still being able to get access to capital. And you can do things like start your first ventures, scale current business operations, or acquire income producing assets. So I want you to understand, whether you're starting out, whether you don't have an LLC started yet, or whether you've got a multiple seven-figure business, you need the funding blueprint in order to get you there. Now, the number one question I get a lot is, okay, I love funding. This is great. I love the idea of having access to capital, but what can you actually do with it? So this is what we teach. Anytime that I talk about business funding, it's about leveraging in the best interest for our operations. So I'm going to teach you how to get access to capital that creates cash flow, because that's the most important. It's not turning credit into cash, it's turning credit into cash flow. That is our main thing that we want to do. So these are the things that I typically see clients use the funding for. So marketing, whatever your business, that actually brings you clients. Systems and staffing that scale you, right? Investing into your business, your infrastructure. Purchasing assets like real estate, stocks, or one of my favorite, acquiring other businesses. But a huge thing is here is, and you guys are a part of this community, so you can also use it to invest in education, masterminds, or mentorships that sharpen your skills and also increase your network. And understand, whenever we talk about access to capital, this isn't just access to money. This is access to momentum that will be able to fast track whatever your current operations are. Now, the ultimate question I want you to think about as we go through this is, I want you to think about, because this is what we always ask and really position our clients. What if you could build wealth using the bank's money and not your own? So imagine being able to acquire assets, hiring a team, and scale your business, all without actually draining your savings or maxing out your personal credit cards. I see this a lot. So absolutely possible to get funded, but we've got to transition the mindset for how we actually think about getting funded, because before you get funded, you need to be able to think about a bank, to think like a bank. And a lot of people, when I hear about funding, they're like, oh, we're just applying, you're just submitting applications, but that's not what this is. Funding is not about applying, it's about qualifying. And 90% of your work, the majority of your work, whenever you're looking for access to capital, is done prior to ever applying for the fund that you're for the funding that you're looking for. And you have to understand that the reason most people get denied isn't because they don't have potential. It's because they don't understand the rules to the specific game that they're actually playing. And these are the questions that you have to be able to answer, and that I'm going to teach you how today. So what actually makes a credit report fundable? What makes a business structure trustworthy? And what do banks actually look for when lending 5 to 6 figures in capital? And that's ultimately what I'm going to walk you through here, is a couple key components that separate hopeful applications to predictable approvals. When you submit applications, you don't want to be hoping and praying and just on a whim hoping that you're going to get the funding that you're getting. You want to know ahead of time that you are in the position for the highest probability of that approval. So over the next couple minutes, I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you why most people get denied and how to flip those odds in your favor, how to create a credit and business structure that banks actually love and fund, and how to fund businesses in the most efficient way possible, oftentimes at 0% and minimal documentation, and really what separates hopeful businesses from fundable ones. Now, this is more than information. I want you guys to understand this is a transformation in how you actually really build and grow your business, backed by real funding that you can actually use to increase your operations, right? Now, some of you guys may know me. Some of you may be the first time hearing from me. So let me give a little bit of introduction to who I am and why I'm deserving of any amount of your time, right? So the first thing, my name is Mr. Dorsey. You can follow me, connect with me, CEO Dorsey on all platforms. I've been talking about funding, capital, businesses for a very, very, very long time. Now, there's a couple things that we use during this process. So I'm an expert in credit and funding. I have extensive experience. I've been in the credit industry a very, very, very long time, and we create tailored funding solutions for entrepreneurs and businesses. Understand, it's a funding, kind of like I talked about earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. It is a custom strategy and custom structure to each and every business or person that we actually work with. Now, I am a founder of a seven-figure consultancy where we really streamline the process for funding, asset acquisition, and long-term success. When you get access to capital, it's important to have a plan in both the short term and the long term to understand why you're doing what you're doing, right? And I've been doing this a long time. I've done everything from funding, credit to multi-million-dollar acquisitions, and I'm skilled in structuring deals that build strong partnerships with banks, lenders, and investors. So I tell you that to say, I'm going to tell you something that we do each and every single day, not something that I just think is possible, right? Now, we have to understand the problem before we can actually offer and really understand the solution. So the problem that I've seen that most people have today when it comes to investing in their businesses or starting up businesses or scaling their business is that they're really growing their business the hard way. And they're doing things like using their personal credit cards or savings to survive. They're getting denied. They might have a great structure. They might have a great credit profile, but they're getting denied because their structure didn't check all the boxes, right? You might be watching others scale faster, and they're like, hey, how are you able to do this? While they're stuck in delay and doubt. When you look at people who are growing, when you look at the wealthy, they think about funding differently. They're not structuring and trying to save and work hard for all of their funds. When you look at the buildings, when you look at the cars, when you look at the businesses, they are financing these things. They are figuring out how to leverage capital to purchase assets. So when you're able to understand this game, you're able to capitalize on the opportunities that you may be missing out currently. And ultimately, funding has become a very popular topic the last couple of years, right? And so a lot of people, what I found is that they might be frustrated, overwhelmed, or even unsure of who to trust or really what to do next. And that's why we really want to do this today, because the reality is the system wasn't built for people like us. They weren't built to teach us this in school. This is something you have to learn through action. And this is not something that you learn just sitting on YouTube or, kind of wondering how this whole thing works. And that's why you're here today, because we're going to teach you exactly how to fix that. Now, the solution is, I don't just want to help you get funded one time. I want to help you be able to position yourself that you have the type of business that can get funded repeatedly over and over and over again. So we're going to give you a strategy that banks trust, a structure that qualifies for capital, a process that will get you funding in 30 to 90 days, not 6 to 12 months of wasted effort and really trying to figure out what's going on. And ultimately a playbook that works whether you're a startup or whether you haven't started up your business yet, or whether you're dealing with multiple seven figures already. We want to teach you how to going from hoping to get funding to confidently actually expecting to get funding. Now, before I really break down capital and how to get access to capital, there's a couple things that we do have to discuss. I have to go over important for who this is for, and then we have to cover who this is not for, because it's very, very important. Now, who is this for? This is for you if you're tired of burning your personal credit just to keep your business afloat. You've already tasted success, but you need serious capital to scale. I've worked with clients. They've gotten some business funding. They've gotten a little bit of business funding, but they need more because they need more for their operations, right? You've got the vision and you've got the grind, but not necessarily the funding structure to match. This is what I see 90% of the time. And you want to build wealth with other people's money, not your own. So bottom line, if you're serious about becoming fundable, scalable, or one of my favorite, acquisition ready, you actually belong here. Now that we got the who this is for, let's talk about who this is not for. This is very, very important. Whenever we talk about capital, we have to understand that we're going to leverage capital to create cash flow. You're going to hear me say that a couple times throughout this process. So this is not for people who just want to learn but never take action. This is great information. We're going to give you applicable information, but I want you to be able to use this information and capitalize on it. Now, this is important. This is not for those who think funding is magic without putting in work. Funding is absolutely possible, but there is a strategy that has to be put in place in order for you to get access to capital. Kind of like how I spoke about previously. 90% of the work, the majority of the work that you do is done prior to ever submitting an application for funding. So you have to be able to put in the work in order to put yourself in a position to qualify for funding. This is also not for anyone who is not ready to be coached, advised, and guided on results. Understand that most people have an assumption of how the credit or banking system works, and they bring those assumptions to this system. And I'm going to tell you, majority of the time, people have misinformation. So you have to be able to unlearn and relearn the proper information so that you can actually apply it to your specific situation, right? And this is not for entrepreneurs who are not serious about building something real. If you want to change your business, we want to match that energy, and we want to give you more value than what you actually expect. Now that we understand who this is for and who this is not for, now let's actually begin to break down and discuss the foundation and key components of actually being able to get funded. Now, we don't like to make any assumptions. I like to teach from the ground up, so that way everyone is covered. I want you to understand, when it comes to funding, you can get funding based on personal credit, you can get funding based on business credit. Most people, however, and generally speaking, again, generally, not specific to your situation, but generally speaking, most people do not have already or strong enough established business credit to just get business funding under their EIN, right? And we'll break this down a little bit more later, but I wanted to preface this because if someone understands how to build it and set the foundation, you can still access business funding. So where we like to revert back to is understanding personal credit. We're going to break down personal credit. We're going to break down business credit. We're going to break down business funding, and we're also going to break down corporate credit. So understand, as we go through this, we will explain this. Now, when we talk about credit reports, we're going to start in the personal first, and then we're going to graduate to the business, because generally speaking, that's where most people have to start. So understand this. Credit doesn't just tell the banks who you are. It tells them whether to trust you or not, and how much funding or how much capital of their products that they should be able to trust you with. So understand, people come to me all the time. I've got a 750 credit score. I got a 780 credit score, got a 700 plus credit score. I know I can get all the funding in the world. I'm going to tell you, a lot of times that's wrong, because most denials have nothing to do with the score at all. I'm going to say something that a lot of people hate when I say this, but when it comes to funding, the credit score does not matter. I know that most times we think about these scores and we think we got a high score and we're like, hey, we deserve the world. False, because it's not. Funding has nothing to do with the score. It only has to do with the structure of your profile and your business. So understand, you may have a great credit score, but you could have mismatched names and addresses, auto denial. You could have a great credit score and have two accounts, thin profile, low trust, denial, or also low amount of funding. The inconsistent data across multiple credit reporting agencies or the public agencies makes it hard. And if there's inconsistent data, you're a flag risk. Guess what? Auto denial, low limits. So the fix is we want to be able to help you position a profile that banks actually say yes to over and over and over again. Now, again, we're going to break this down and make this very, very simple. So when it comes to the credit report, whether you know this or not, there are 3 privately owned independent main credit reporting agencies. There's a lot more. We're not going to break them all down today, so we're just going to talk about the main 3. Today on the personal side, we're going to discuss TransUnion, we're going to discuss Experian, and we are going to discuss Equifax. So if you look at these, on the left column, there's the factors. There's a couple main factors that we look at. There's utilization, there's inquiries, there's payment history, credit age, derogatory remarks, and total accounts. Going across, that's where you can see TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, and we're going to break this down for each individual bureau. Now, the first factor we're going to discuss is utilization. In simple terms, utilization just means the percentage or the amount of credit that you're using as compared to the amount of credit that you have available. So let's just use simple math. Let's say you have $1,000 credit card and you're using $300 of that $1,000 credit card. That's 30% utilization. Let's say you have $1,000 credit card and you're using $700 of that. That is now 70% utilization, right? So understand when it comes to utilization, we want to sit below 30% utilization. I have a lot of conversations. They're like, hey, I got a $10,000 credit card. I can use as much of it as I want to. Yeah, you can, but you have to understand that the more you use, the more risky that you look, therefore, typically the less likely you're going to get the approvals that you're looking for. So understand, even though you have that whole available limit, you have to understand certain thresholds when it comes time to getting funding. One of the key data points is less than 30% utilization minimal, less than 10% utilization ideal, and that's overall, but that's also each individual credit account or each per account as well. For an example, I had a client like about a month ago. They had $100,000 in credit, personal credit cards. One of their accounts, they had 20% utilization, but they kind of had this thought that they had a $20,000 limit and they can use the whole $20,000 limit. So the reason that was literally a prime example why I use this case study, because they had 100,000 in available credit. They were at just under 20% utilization. So they were applying everywhere. Hey, I'm getting denied. I don't understand. They came to us and we broke it down. We understand. He was at 20% utilization overall, but that 20% utilization came from one account. He had one account that was maxed out. So even though overall he was less than 20%, it has to be each individual account as well too. Very, very important. Now, inquiries. Inquiries just happen anytime that someone checks your credit report. Now, inquiries don't drop your score a lot, but the number of inquiries within a certain time period, specifically within the last 6 to 12 months, the less inquiries, the higher likely you are to look at that to get those approvals. Now, really within the last 6 to 12 months, we want to see 0 to 2 inquiries. So we want to see less than 3 inquiries within the last 6 to 12 months. Inquiries show up on your report for 2 years. They really are only impactful for the last 6 to 12 months. Now, payment history. Again, whenever you have credit, it signifies to the bank how trustworthy you are. So they want to see that you've been able to manage the previous capital or access to credit that you have in order to give you higher limits of credit. So understand, payment history needs to be 100%. Credit age. They want to see clients or businesses or people who have experience in dealing with things over time. So typically you want your average credit age. Average credit age is the age of all of your accounts added up in years, divided by the number of accounts that you have. That will give you your average credit age. You really want your average credit age to be above 4 years, 4 years plus. Derogatory remarks. So derogatory remarks comes as collections, charge off, bankruptcies, things of that nature. You don't want any derogatory remarks on your credit report. And total accounts, kind of going back to credit age, they want to see experience not over just age, but they also want to see that you can manage multiple credit accounts as well too. So they want to see some credit cards, some auto loans, different multiple factors and multiple accounts on there. Now, understand, these are the ideal metrics for maximum approvals. They are not the absolute determinants for an approval. Again, this process focuses less on the score and more on the accounts that it's actually based upon. These are the ideal data points. We will go over the minimal data points in just a few. Now, the next stage, now that you understand the data points that you need to qualify, now you have to have something that's called credit monitoring or access to your credit report. Because the reality is you can't fix what you can't see. And most people don't even track their credit until it's too late. And you want to be proactive in this process, not reactive in this process. Very, very important. So having access to a credit monitoring or access to your credit report, there are a lot of sites out there. There's a ton. There's paid versions. If you want a free copy of your credit report, you can go to annualcreditreport.com, right? So there's no reason why you shouldn't have access to your reports and understand what is actually happening, because again, you can't fix what you can't see. And it's going to show you how to spot the issues on your report before they actually cost you. You're going to be able to track movement across all of the three major credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And when it comes time for funding, because again, most of your work is done prior to the funding, when it comes time for funding, it's going to help you time your applications for the maximum results. And ultimately here, credit monitoring is the insight to the information being reported on your behalf. And the more insight that you have, the higher the probability of that approval. Looks like my slide got messed up a little bit, so I do apologize. Now, the first step to this is once you actually have everything else positioned, so you have your credit in line, you have everything aligned, then it comes time to choose the banks. Now, there's a couple different ways that we choose banks in this strategy, because understand that picking the right bank is picking the right investor. Banks are in the business of lending money. And I can tell you majority of the time when it comes to just working with an investor that just wants access to your business just because they provided money, a lot of times you can bypass a lot of those by just understanding how to get access to the capital, how to get access to capital from the bank. Now, understand every bank pulls a different bureau. There are thousands. I want to clarify that as well too. A lot of times I have these conversations, people might be familiar with the top 5 to 10 banks. There are thousands of banks across the United States alone. And understand that every bank in the nation pulls a different bureau and uses different rules. So the decision or the underwriting rules or guidelines of one bank has no determination on another bank. Please understand that. So understand the opportunity here when I talk about thousands of banks that you could potentially work with in order to be the investor or to provide you the capital so that you can grow your business. Right now, the best practice is you want to match banks based on your strongest bureaus. So there's personal credit bureaus, there's business credit bureaus that we're going to talk about in just a few. You want to also prioritize banks where you already have trust. Banking is about relationships. A lot of people, when they think about funding, they look away from the banks that they're already banking with. If you already have products with a bank, let's say Bank A, if you already have products with Bank A and you have no relationship with Bank B, you probably should start with Bank A before you go to Bank B for funding, because you have a stronger relationship with Bank A, right? So you also want to understand how to apply in the right order to maximize momentum. This is not about guesswork. This is not throw something at the wall and hope it works. This is not guesswork. This is an actual strategy, and it's a bank-tested strategy that works over and over and over again. Now, some examples, just to give you some examples here. So if you're looking at different banks, there's going to be 9 banks here that we all discuss. Some of them you may be familiar with, some of them you may not. They all pull from a different credit bureau. Though this is 9 out of thousands. So if you're looking at banks who pull or review your TransUnion credit report. My apologies, guys. I forgot to mention this in the beginning. I stutter. So by the way, if you've ever had like fear of like public speaking, I had that for a long time because I used to stutter. I've stuttered for a long time. Please use me as an example to not use that as an excuse, right? So understand, I just wanted to mention that to clarify that. Now, back on track. If you're looking at banks who pull TransUnion, you're going to want to look at banks like Navy Federal, US Bank, or also Cadence Bank. If you're going to look at banks who pull Experian, Amex, one of the biggest, American Express, First Horizon, PNC. And if you're looking at banks who pull Equifax, you're going to look at banks like Truist, Comerica, and also PenFed. I give you that as an example, just so that you can understand how this is actually applicable. Now, the other thing is understanding the BRM. So BRM stands for Banking Relationship Manager. And we want you to understand, again, relationships matter. So we want to go over BRMs and also the long-term funding strategy. So the BRM stands for Banking Relationship Manager. These are trusted bankers who can increase your approval chances and credit limits because they work at the bank. They have relationships with the bank. They have relationships with underwriting, and they understand to a T at an expert level how the banking system works within that particular bank. Remember, there are thousands of banks. They all have different underwriting guidelines, right? Now, when you do things like this and when you understand how to position your report and the things that we're discussing in this, the idea, when you have the ideal data points, when you have the business structure, when you align it properly, you're going to understand how to apply for these banks and get access to capital. Now, first round expectations, understand a lot of times when people think about funding, they think about going to one bank, they think about one round. I want to completely change that to leverage. It's about relationships. The more relationships you have, the more opportunities you have, the more access to capital you have, right? So understand when you leverage the things that we talk about, but while doing this process, the first round expectations, having those ideal data points, is you want to look for $100,000 to $250,000 in funding if that's what you're looking for. If you're only looking for 50,000, great. If you match these metrics that we've talked about in all these different data points, you're in a great position to qualify for the 50,000 that you're looking for. But if you want to go big, and if you're looking for the six-figure lines, this is how you position yourself to do so, by doing and leveraging the data points that I've talked about. Now, very important, when you get access to capital, remember, we're going to turn capital into cash flow. We're going to use leverage to purchase assets for what we need to grow our operations. So you're going to use this capital to fund your key ventures, your business, your real estate, your stocks, your acquisitions, etc. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to manage the capital well. You're going to put in things that generate a potential ROI, so a return on your investment. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this process, because right now today, let's just break it down. Let's use 50,000. Let's say right now today, generally speaking, most people don't have $50,000 in business credit. So when you first go to the bank and you're getting that 50,000, you need to manage that a little bit and then go back later. Now, the difference is between the reason we talk about repeating this process that's 6 to 12 months later, because the difference between now and 6 to 12 months from now, generally speaking, for most people, if you didn't have $50,000 in business credit today, and you have it over 6 to 12 months and you manage it well, guess what that's done? That's established your business credit. So now 6 to 12 months later, you can repeat this process. And in the banking industry, we call it comparable credit. All that simply means is banks want to lend off of the comparable limits that you already have. Bank A trusts you with certain amounts. Hey, banks want to compete for your business. Understand that. Banks compete for your business. When you understand how to position yourself, it puts a lot of the power back into your control, or back in your favor, right? So understand that you're going to let it age 6 to 12 months. When you do that, you're going to have a stronger financial standing and a stronger business credit profile. So kind of like what I was talking about, when you repeat this process 6 to 12 months from now, that's when you're going to get those similar funding results based on those, based on those comparable limits. So that way you're going to look for similar results in those future rounds. Now, long-term goal here, right? Some people might just want 20,000 and they love it. Some people might just want 50. Some people might just want 100 and they love it. But there are some clients we work with who need multiple 6 figures, who need multiple 7 figures in funding. Understand the long-term goal for here. When you have these strategies, you can consistently manage building access to multiple 6-figure credit lines. And I have helped multiple clients reach $1 million in funding in capital by leveraging these strategies, even if they initially came to us as a startup. So understand these strategies actually work. Now, the next thing is we transition to the business side, is you have to have a proper business structure as well too, because kind of like the personal side, most business don't get denied because they're bad. They don't. They might be a great business, but they get denied because they look unprepared. When you present your business as a professional business, it will be treated like a professional business. However, if the bank perceives that your business looks like a hobby, then they're going to unfortunately treat it like a hobby. So it's understanding how fundable businesses are not just established, they're structured to be trusted because they're going to be ahead of the market, right? We want to be able to turn your side hustles into fundable companies that banks want to work with. You do not have a side hustle. You have an entity, you have an enterprise, you have an organization. We want to present it like that so that it can get the funding that it actually deserves. And we're going to walk you through how through every step of setting up your business the right way. You want to have a professional presence, you want to have the proper registrations, and you want to have a smart financial setup, because when banks see real businesses, they give access to real capital and you get access to real money. Now, before we move on to how to actually get businesses funded, we need to understand why most businesses actually get denied. So a couple things. Their personal information does not match up across the credit reporting agencies. CRAs stands for credit reporting agencies. We're just referencing TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Now, no real online presence or business infrastructure. They have no credit history under the business, right? There's no credibility with the business credit reporting agencies. So you have business Experian, you have business Equifax, you have Dun & Bradstreet, you have the SBFE, the Small Business Financial Exchange, you have the Paydex score, you have so many other business credit reporting agencies in addition to the personal, and your business needs to be able to be tracked in some way to increase the trustworthiness or credibility of your business. And a lot of businesses, they might be great businesses, but the reality is they're just not positioned to pass underwriting. And you need to understand these mistakes, because when you understand these mistakes, and when you do the opposite of what most people are doing, your business is going to stand out. It's going to be more credible. It's going to be more trustworthy, which ultimately looks a lot more fundable and a lot more credible to lenders, which is what we really want to do. We want to teach you how to make the bank your best friend, how to make it your investor. You don't have to be afraid of the banks. I assure you, they are in business to give you money. Banks love to give you money. You just have to be able to make sure that you're in a position to receive it. So again, on this page, I don't want to make any assumptions about where someone has their business set up. Now, I prefaced this in the beginning, but it's worth reiterating here. You're talking all about trust, more specifically private trust. So the best strategy that I found and teach myself and teach our clients is to keep the trust private and leverage public entities such as LLCs or corporations in order to go and get access to capital. Now, the other thing here, it's absolutely possible to get a trust funded. It's just a lot more documentation to get it done. If you have the documentation and you have the assets in your trust already, perfect. We can make that happen. But if you don't, I want to teach you how to leverage state entities so you can get funding so that you can purchase assets and actually create cash flow. So when we do this, we're going to break this down from start to finish, because some of you may have a business, some of you may have a thriving business, someone may be trying to figure out how to start an LLC today. I want to make sure that we cover all of those points. So you want to make sure that you build a professional foundation and you look like you're transitioning from just an individual to a business, and you're actually establishing a true business. So the 8-step process we're going to run through really quick. So number one, in order to have a business, it does have to have some kind of business name, right? Some kind of business name to activate the business. Now, ideally, when you open your business, you want a domain for that business. A domain is just a website. You can use, most commonly, I use GoDaddy. You can also use Google domains. There's a lot out there, right? So there's a lot of information on how to get a domain. You just want to get a domain that ideally matches your business name, because number two, you want to obtain an email business address. So for example, if your business is called ABC Consulting, you want your domain to be at ABC Consulting, not DEF Consulting, right? It has to look congruent in it, and it has to look professional. Now, when you get you also want to get a business address, and you want to get a business phone number. A business is separate from you. You have your personal, you have your business. You need to divorce yourself and completely separate yourself apart. Your business is a separate entity and separate identity than you. It needs a completely different profile. Now, when you have that information, then number three, you're going to go to the SOS, which is the Secretary of State. Whatever state that you want to establish your business in, you will go to that Secretary of State. You will establish the business in that state. You can do it yourself, or you can use a third party. I'll even give you the example. I love a platform called Zen Business, Z-E-N Business, because they will actually apply for your business for you and only charge state fees, which is amazing, right? So you can pretty much get your business set up by a professional, even if you don't know how, and you can pay state fees for it, right? So understand that. Number four, you need a registered agent, and you need an operating agreement. A registered agent is someone who is, or entity who is able to accept mail or represent on your behalf. And an operating agreement in the LLC, it's operating agreement for LLCs, it's bylaws for the corporations, but it just outlines how the operations actually work within that entity. Now, number five, once you have that set up, you want to go get your EIN. The EIN is free. I'm sure, I know Christina showed you how to get the EIN for the trust. Takes 5 or 10 minutes. It's a very quick process. It's free. Same exact process for LLCs or corporations. I can't tell you how many times over the year people pay hundreds of dollars to go get an EIN. It is free on irs.gov. Takes you 5 minutes, right? Now, going back to, you want to obtain a Dun & Bradstreet. A Dun & Bradstreet allows you to share or have your Paydex score And it's also going to be beneficial if you are in government contracting. Now, the other thing, you want to establish some kind of online presence. Minimally build a website. If you have a business website, it's going to look a lot more professional to the banks, but you can have additional, sometimes it comes into consideration. We've done large acquisitions, and sometimes when banks are funding these large acquisitions, they want to see that there's an actual online presence, that there's YouTube, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's blogs, there's something of that nature that actually shows that the business is growing. So very, very important. Now, the next thing, number 7, I can't tell you how many people over the years I've consulted, they've got a business, but they don't have a business bank account. They're like, oh, I got a business. I've had a business for the last 5 years. I'm running all the funds through my personal account. Please do not do that. Separate yourselves. Remember, divorce yourselves from your business. Open up a business bank account. You can open up, now when you go to banks, remember, it's about relationships. So when you have a business bank account, you need to open up a business checking account. Now, when you go to banks, you can, when we talk about products with banks, it's bank accounts themselves, it's CD accounts, it's credit accounts, etc. These are the banking products. The more products you have with a bank, they assume that you show more interest. Therefore, you're going to build a stronger relationship with that bank. It's all about relationships. So when you open up a business checking account, it is optional for you to also open up a separate personal checking account as well too, but your business funds need to go through your business bank account, right? Understand that. And when you have a business bank account open, you need to make a deposit. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had a conversation with a business owner. They got a business, the business has no deposit within that bank account, right? Understand, you need to make deposits within these accounts to build stronger relationships and legitimize your business and those accounts. Now it leads me to my bottom part. Use the banking products. You can use things like merchant accounts. If you have a business and you're processing credit cards or card transactions at all, you can open up merch accounts. You can have more bank accounts. You can have credit products. All of these things build a stronger relationship with the bank. It's kind of like dating. If you want to access build a relationship with someone, you need to show interest with them. The more products you have, the more you're going to date with them, right? You're not going to just jump head first, meet somebody today and give them the world tomorrow. I hope not, at least, right? Maybe you do, but I hope not. The best practice, right? And so you want to show more interest over a period of time so that the bank will actually trust you with their products. Now, there are a couple different ways that we see whenever it comes to establishing a business. So we're going to go over the three most common, right? So we're going to talk about startups, we're going to talk about age corps, we're going to talk about one of my favorite, which is the acquisitions. Now, startups are now, well, let me clarify this. Not all roads to capital are the same. All of them can get funded, but the more age, revenue, credibility that you have, the more funding you're going to get, right? So understand the startup phase. If you don't have a business or you just started, that's perfectly fine, because starting up a company gives you the maximum flexibility and the creativity when building a business from the ground up. You can create your unique offerings, you can establish new markets, and you can innovate freely. Now, absolutely, I get this question all the time. I've got a brand new business, I'm never going to get funding. False. If you have the right structure and you have the right reports, you can still get access to capital. Startups can still secure capital within 30 days of being established, but obviously, funding is easier with older entities, right? The older it is, the more established it is, the more trustworthy it is, which leads me to my next thing, which is age corps. Age corps they're an established business entity that has been legally formed previously. So sometimes with clients, they want to fast track the business funding process. They might just be starting up their company today, but they could acquire a company that's a couple years old, already established, so they can leverage that entity in order to get funding based on it being an older and more credible industry. Because statistically, most businesses fail within 2 to 5 years. So the older the business that you have, the key point is making a business past 2 years, you bypass a lot of security data points with banks, and you're actually able to access some products that newer businesses are not able to access. More specifically, one of my favorite products, the business line of credit. So age corps allow you to access business credit and financing due to the corporation's age and longer history. If you look at a bank would rather fund a business that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old than was just started 30 days ago. That leads me to a point. Absolutely possible get a brand new business funded, but you're going to get more funding the more credibility that you have. Now, understand, shameless plug, we are a trusted resource for age corporations and can help match you with pre-vetted funding-ready entities, because age corporations are great. They're phenomenal. We've been using them for a long time, but you have to have a good, properly structured age corporation, right? Moving on to my next topic, acquisitions. One of my favorite ways, one of my favorite strategies, especially in funding and actually creating cash flow, is acquisitions, because you fast track growth by acquiring a business with established operations and market presence. You get immediate access to revenue, trained staff, and valuable customer relationships. And understand, when it comes to acquisitions, if you need help with acquisitions as well, we do this a lot. We have experience in supporting strategic mergers and acquisitions for clients and partners. Right. So moving on, understand, please note, there are a lot of funding programs, many funding programs available, but primarily, generally speaking, our main focus is on 0% business credit cards and business lines of credit. Right now, those are the most common. You're not going to find anything lower than 0% out here. If you find something lower for 0% where people are paying you to lend you money, please let me know, because I need to know that as soon as possible. But when it comes to banks, leveraging at 0% is the cheapest money that you can get and leverage, and creates a lot of opportunity for a lot of startup business owners or business lines of credit. Now, those are our most popular, but those are not our only. So here's the other just really quick run through of the most common funding programs that we look at. So when it comes to loans, we can assist with DSCR. DSCR is an acronym, stands for debt service coverage ratio. Very, very popular with Airbnb or properties that will be rented out. We can assist with auto financing, whether single auto financing, fleet auto financing, 18-wheelers, you name it, we can assist you. Term loans, SBA, we have extensive contacts with the SBA. We can do equipment financing, right? Tractors, trucks, trailers, whatever you're looking for, right? When it comes to credit cards, we can assist with 0% business credit, personal credit. We can structure it based on whether you're looking for corporate credit, travel rewards, cash back rewards, lines of credit, business line of credit, HELOCs, so the home equity line of credit, personal line of credit, investment properties, and also securities-backed line of credit. So in summary here, most of what we deal with or assist with is credit-based financing, whether personal credit or business credit-based financing. However, there are times that we work with businesses, they have a performing business, they're making 10, 15, 20, X amount of money per month, but they might have some challenges on their credit. They go most places, they don't have any other solutions. They just tell them, hey, you got to fix your credit. I don't care how good your business is doing. You just got to come back whenever your credit is fixed. A lot of people get turned away with working with a lot of other organizations. We do offer solutions if someone has credit challenges, but they do have a performing business. So we can look at alternative financing, things like merchant cash advances, invoice factoring, asset-based lending, revenue-based lending, or inventory financing. Now, understand, I'm going to share you a little bit about some of the results and people we've been able to assist in this process, but it's important, again, every funding deal is different. So understand, I've never had two funding deals go the exact same, I assure you, right? So the disclaimer here is past performances do not guarantee future results, but I want to give you some examples of a couple different case studies that this is the first time I'm really breaking this down. I've talked about the financing and the results and shown the results for a lot of times, but this is the first time for me really explaining how these people came into us and how they actually transitioned from using our services, right? So the first thing, a couple different scenarios that we're going to go over here, from denied to approved, fixing the foundation. So there was a guy named Marcus. He was an aspiring entrepreneur. He wanted to start up. He was denied by multiple banks. He had a 590 credit score. He had a big dream, but he really had no path to funding, right? So ultimately what happened was he had this business. He's like, hey, I've got the best business in the world. I can't get it funded. Well, he just didn't look as trustworthy to the banks, which is fine. It's okay. We got to start somewhere, right? So Marcus came to us after months of frustration. His personal credit had several issues, right? He had some outdated addresses, high utilization, some late payments that were actually dragging down his score. He'd already been denied by multiple lenders, and really just threw funding out the window. He's like, you know what? I got this great business. Nobody wants to fund my business. Nobody wants to see me win, etc. I can't get funding, right? So this is what we do. We talked about him. I said, look, we just got to figure out the first steps to get you funded. So what happened was he came through us, figured out during his complimentary audit. During his audit, we were able to pinpoint the exact reasons for his denials. Again, you can't fix what you can't see. He just knew he had a great business. He had no idea what was actually being reported on his behalf. So you have to get a real clear vision on why that's so important. This is why we talk about that. Now we provided him the resources to clean up his credit, disputing the inaccurate data, and ultimately lower his utilization and build positive reporting accounts. The solution, the result, and it takes some time. This is why I say sometimes you have to put in a little bit of effort in order to get the results that you want. The instant gratification is rarely going to get you the results that you're looking for. Understand that. And rushing the funding process never ends in the result that you're looking for. So after he was able to assist, or after he was going through this process, he cleaned his credit profile. We helped him get a proper business structure and market supplied using our custom funding sequence, right? So again, you facilitate with banks that are going to fit your credit profile the best. He was able to get $75,000 from one bank, one of the biggest banks in actually the current biggest bank in the nation, Chase. And he used that capital to launch a mobile detailing business. He got some equipment, and he also invested into marketing, all without using his own savings, when months prior he was like, listen, this funding game is a joke, it's a scam. I can't get no funding. I got a great business and nobody wants to fund it, right? So it's understanding why certain things are happening. Now, other thing, some of you may have seen this, but I've never broken down this story, right? And so the case study is leveraging revenue to access capital, even with damaged credit. So this kind of goes back to sometimes there are performing businesses that the individual running the business, they may have some challenges, but the business is performing, right? So understand, this was a client, her name was Jasmine. She was an e-commerce business owner. She made $1 million plus. But her credit scores were in the low 600. She'd gone through a divorce. She'd gone through some things. She kind of took some hits, right? So understand, she had a profitable business, but she was still stuck, not being able to really figure out why she couldn't get access to capital, because she was going to major banks. She's like, I got $1 million and I can't get any funding. I'm getting denied everywhere I go, right? Because she had taken that hit. It's fine. It's okay where you start, right? So how we help is we immediately, as you're going through the intake process, whenever you go through that intake process, we're able to clearly figure out what's going on because we can specifically see what's happening. And what happened was we introduced her to our credit resources. She was able to go through that process. But in the meantime, we were able to look at revenue-based financing. And in the meantime, we were able to get her some access to capital while she was actually repairing her credit at the same time, right? So ultimately what she did, she invested it back into her business. She got the revenue-based financing so that she could have some access to capital over the next couple of weeks. She got her credit fixed. And then when she got her credit fixed, then we went back for the ideal funding products, right? Now, there's another one here. So a lot of times whenever we go to banks, we can look at multiple products. A lot of times when people think about funding, they're going to go to one bank, they're going to look for one product, and that's it, right? Understand that you can leverage multiple accounts or multiple products at the bank in order to get what you're looking for. So, and a lot of times in our industry, especially when we're working with older entrepreneurs, a lot of people may have the wrong perception when it comes to banks. A lot of people may be afraid of the banks, but you have to learn how to leverage them in your favor so that you can use their products, right? Very similar situation with a guy here, Eric, 10-year entrepreneur, completely self-funded. When you talk about someone who's extremely proud of being able to just bootstrap everything, Eric was a guy, right? He had a negative perception of the banks. He hated them. We had a conversation. He just wasn't a big fan of banks. For a long time, he had heard debt is bad, and he didn't understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. He had just always learned debt was bad, and he didn't know how to leverage it in order to create his cash flow. So ultimately, we with us, but when you do that and you don't leverage, especially when you have a business that's performing, it's going to slow your operations because you're limited to the amount of revenue that you make, not necessarily the opportunities that are passing you by that you could use leverage to be able to capitalize on. So what we did, we ultimately came through, we explained him and repositioned how to leverage banks in the system. in order to get the funding that you're looking for. And what we were able to do with him, he was able to go to one bank, his first bank, get two products. He got a $50,000 business line of credit. He got a $40,000 business credit card. And now, to be honest with you, he's actually one of our biggest partners because he had a negative perception of banks. He hated them. He came to us. We broke it down. He understood how to maneuver. And now he was able to progress and is actually one of our biggest advocates for talking about and leveraging capital from someone who previously hated banks and had no idea or no idea really what was going on. The last thing here is, and again, this is one of my favorite, I just love acquisitions, right? I think that one of the greatest ways to leverage funding is either marketing for your current company or using funding to acquire a cash flowing business. It's one of the cheat codes in life, in my opinion. Now, Danielle, she was a marketing consultant looking to transition to ownership. She had limited business credit because she had a brand new business. Well, not a brand new business. It was a little bit older, but she didn't have established business credit. She just had an entity that was structured, but she had great personal credit. So she had no idea. A lot of times when people talk about having a business, a lot of people think about, oh, I have to go start a business from ground up. That's really that was really her mindset. And we kind of transitioned that to letting her know that, hey, you can leverage credit to create cash flow and you can leverage it to grow your business, or you can acquire other businesses, right? But she wanted leverage. She didn't really want another job. So ultimately what we did, we worked with Daniela. We gave her funding services. So we also helped her on an acquisition strategy. And what we were able to do, we were able to get her $60,000 in funding, leveraging at 0%, that she then used to invest in a down payment. She had some kind of like, it was like a boutique creative. So it was like she had like a creative agency. It had like a little, she had like digital products. What are those things called? You go to them, they're like for social media places. Anyway, she had like a whole setup where like creators could come, they could create digital products, they could shoot their content, all of that, right? Now she leveraged this agency and it was already making cash flow. Now what she did was she went from a consultant to a business owner, a solo consultant to a business owner, and actually acquiring a business that actually had a team, revenue, and being able to access more capital. Now, the reality is this happens a lot, right? And there's hundreds of others. At this point, there's truly thousands of others that we've helped. But the truth of the reality is that funding isn't luck. It's about a system. And it's why we talk about things from the basic to the beginning, because when you see this earlier, these are a lot of different scenarios we deal with on a daily basis, but they didn't just get lucky. They followed a system, the same one that you've been learning today. They have a roadmap, they have a strategy, they knew which banks to approach and more importantly, when, and they knew how to understand and structure their credit and business in order to qualify. And when you know what to do, when you know who to talk to, when you know how to present yourself, funding becomes predictable, not just impossible, and not just hopeful. And that's really the power of having a real playbook. So based on everything we talked about here today, there's really only two things that matter. The two things that separate the people who get funded from those who don't, and when it comes down to it, is your foundation and your approvals. So setting the foundation, which is having a fundable business structure, a personal credit profile that banks trust, and a clean and credible application strategy, and then ultimately your approvals, and putting yourself in the highest position for the probability of the approval that you're looking for, knowing the right banks in the right order, using the right credit bureaus, and getting high limit approvals and being able to establish those over time to create more leverage, right? You don't need 20 different programs. You don't need hours and hours and hours on YouTube or years and years of mistakes trying to figure this out. You just need a system that builds trust and give results. And the reason this works is because it's built around what banks actually want. Funding is a moving target. The way people get funded this year is different than the way that people get funded last year. So you have to be able to work with people who are actively doing this day in and day out, because things change. All of a sudden, it happens in every industry, specifically a lot more in the banking industry typically, right? And you want to understand how to follow a simple for a repeatable process, no guesswork. You want to learn how to work with banks, not against them. Learn how to leverage them as your investors. They are not your enemies. They would love to support your business, I assure you. They are in the business of giving out money. You just have to make sure that you're in a position to qualify for it, right? You want to leverage banking relationship managers, networks, trusted bankers at the bank they work with, and you track where bureaus pull from with a line of your profile. Again, this is not about getting lucky. It's about putting yourself in position to get funded. Now, when we talk about this, for the startup business, if you have a performing business, this will look a lot different. But for the startup, because we like to talk about the startup when I do these presentations, I don't like to make any assumptions. So we want to give you a realistic experience of what this would look like with your startup company or with a company that has limited or no business credit. So what I'm going to teach you is everything we use in combination: the credit, the business structure, the strategies. We call them a sequence. When you use multiple banks in your process, we call that a sequence, because you're leveraging multiple entities in order to get access to capital to build your overall business credit so that you can get higher limits down the road. So understand, if your business doesn't have any business credit or low business credit, you have to make yourself and put yourself in a position where you're as credible as possible. So what I teach you is to leverage multiple banks. If you're looking for 100,000, if you're looking for 50 or a lower amount, obviously these numbers will change, but a lot of times people come to us looking for 100,000, $200,000 plus in capital. So let me explain to you what this usually looks like from the very beginning. So understand, when you're looking for access to capital, let's say you're looking for 100K, 100 grand, absolutely possible to get 100 grand, but for most people, you're typically not going to get it from one bank. So understand, you need to leverage multiple banks. On average, we're going to use between 3 and 7 banks. But if you're new to this, I want to give you the more opportunity that you have. So I'm going to tell you to structure and work with 5 to 10 potential banks. Then this can be modified based on your approval results. You may receive fewer or more banks based on the outcome of your initial sequence. I've had clients, hey, we're going to plan for 5 banks, do 100 grand, they do it in 2 or 3, right? I've had the reverse. Hey, this person, we thought we'd do it in 2 or 3, you might have to go 4 or 5, right? So sometimes you have to correlate or position or pivot depending on the results of your application. Now, for an example, I like to set realistic expectations anytime that I coach, right? So for example, in a sequence of 8 banks, if you're looking for $100,000, you may receive something similar to this. So for example, you might go to bank 1, you get $12,000. You're like, hey, this is awesome. I'm excited. Bank 2, they give you a denial. You're like, man, I'm not too sure about that. Bank 3, they give you 50 grand. Bank 4, they give you 20. Bank 5 is a denial. Bank 6 is 15 grand. 7 is a denial. 8 is an approval, but it's a low limit, right? The total here, though, is that it still equals the $100,000 that you're looking for in real access to capital that you can use, and it's building your business credit for the long term for those subsequent rounds down the road. Now, understand that this process ensures flexibility and the best chance of reaching your actual funding goal. Now, earlier we talked about the ideal data points. If you missed it, you will get a recording of this. Also, the PDF should be in the chat. I did drop that in the chat earlier if you missed it. So understand, this is the minimum. Earlier we talked about the ideal. Now we're going to talk about the minimum. So the minimum credit-based qualifications, because most people don't have a performing business. Most people right now might not be making 6 or 7 figures, right? So you have to look at ways to establish access business funding by leveraging credit, whether establishing your personal credit or establishing business credit. So the minimum base credit qualifications to access business funding, generally speaking, for most people, I hate credit scores, I do, but if we're going to talk about credit scores, generally 680 plus credit score across the board, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. You want minimal 1 major credit card that's issued by Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. You ideally want 1+ years age, or minimally you want 1+ year age with a $2,000 limit, right? You can get funding for a $500,000 limit, but you're not going to go for the home run, right? Again, comparable limits is what the banking is really looking for. No derogatory remarks, no late payments within the last 12 months, and minimally, ideally, no late payments within the last 24. So 12 months is a year, 24 months is 2. No more than 3 new inquiries within the last 6 to 12 months. Minimally 2 years average age history. Now, understand, I hear this, if you've been in the credit industry or you're around, AUs, which stand for authorized users, they absolutely help with personal funding. They do not help with business funding. Banks want to see what you have managed personally whenever they're looking at those comparable limits for business funding. No new accounts, ideally within the last 6 to 12 months, and that 1 to 30% utilization. Now, when you have those qualifications, this is when you're in a better position to apply, right? Now, what do you need to apply? You're looking for business funding, so you need basic details about you and your business. There are a lot of people, when they think about funding, a lot of people think they need 1,000,000 documents and all these different things. There are document-based funding. There are no document-based funding, right? So there's times where they ask for all this documentation to prove you and your business and the financials. There's times that it doesn't, right? Again, there's thousands of banks. Every bank's underwriting guidelines are different. There are multiple options to choose from, and there's really 3 C's whenever we look at getting access to capital. It's either credit, so you have great personal credit, you have great business credit, you have cash flow, so you make a high revenue or you make a high income, or collateral, you have an asset that you can leverage in order to get access to capital, right? Now, ultimately, what's next? You really have 2 options, right? You can take everything you've learned today. I've broken it down in detail. I've given you the PDF, and you can go and do it yourself. And if you do after today, you're better prepared than 99% of the people out here applying for funding. And a lot of times you're going to understand this now at a better level than most people are even teaching about funding, right? Or you can do it yourself, or you can let our team guide you every step of the way. So if you work with us, it's just kind of like working with, streamlining the process, right? So we do a personalized audit. We do that customized funding sequence. So everything that I taught you how to do here today yourself, we just fast track that because we have experience doing it. So we get that personalized audit. We help you create that custom funding sequence. We leverage our strategy, structure, and also full support system, and you get access to our proven network and resources. Now, either way, doesn't matter either way you go. I just want to see you win, and I want to be able to see the results and you to be able to leverage the business funding to get the transformation that you're actually looking for. Ultimately, the only question is, how fast do you really want to move? Now, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to work with you. Again, when you work with us, I like to be very transparent. I want to work who wants to work with us. And if not, I want you to be able to use the results and get your own results. But either way, I want to explain to you how you could work with our services, work with our organization, so we can streamline that process for you. So a lot of people are like, hey, I love the information that you're giving. I love what you're teaching. I love the results that you get. Man, I got to probably come out of pocket thousands of dollars to even get a call with you. Not necessarily. So what if I told you it requires $0 to get started? So the way that we work, we're a performance-based organization. I don't believe in over-promising anything. I believe in results. That's all I want to deliver is results and quality. So for us, if you chose to work with us, we are a performance-based organization. What that means, we don't charge up front. We provide all of the resources, all of the support, all of the intellectual property, professional structure. We put a lot of time, energy, and effort up front in order for you to get funded. The way we work, we just want a little tip for our efforts and our results. Ultimately, the way we work, we earn a 10% performance-based commission after you're funded. We deliver the results first. You get the results first. You get real access to capital. We just earn our percentage after the deal is done. Now, ahead of time, because I want to clarify, sometimes we hear people say, hey, 10%, that's too high. But I want you to understand what that really means. So there's no guesswork. There's no retainers. There's no risk. It's a proven process with expert support and real banking relationships. And ultimately, you save the time, you avoid the costly mistakes, and you walk into funding with confidence. You're not paying for maybe. You're investing in strategy, results, and momentum, where payment is only delivered after you actually get the results, right? So full value of working with us, regardless, you get the complimentary audit. This is what I tell people all the time. Whether you decide to move forward with us or not, at least understand where you are at currently, right? So you do get a complimentary audit. We assess where you are and what's possible. Whether you've got great credit and you think you can be funded $1 million tomorrow, or whether you think, hey, man, I've got some things going on, I don't think I'll ever apply for funding. Understand, I want you to understand there is a solution to whatever strategy you're dealing with, and the complimentary audit will help you understand exactly what's going on. You get a personal funding strategy built just for you. As mentioned, I've done a lot of funding deals. We funded millions of dollars, right? But there's no one size fits all. I say that over and over again. There is no cookie cutter BS whenever it comes to us. It's personalized, strategic to you, your needs. You know what's happening ahead of time before it ever happens, right? You get direct support plus our banking networks. We've already got the team. We've already got the connections. We've already done all the hard work. We built the results. You get the opportunity to leverage that. You get one-on-one coaching. So when you work with us, this is not a sign up and hope you figure it out on your own. You work with our team in a one-on-one capacity every step of the way, right? You get clear answers, you get real plans, you also get strategic actions. And remember, as a performance-based company, there's no upfront cost. We don't win until you do. This is a vested effort. This is a team effort to get you funded and get you the access to capital that you're looking for. And just like I talked about, this is a performance-based. This is a high capital, high impact consulting services, and we're built for people only who are ready to win. Now, regardless of whether you like to work with us, whether you want to work with us or not, once you complete the review, whether you're qualified or whether you're not qualified, the only process, nothing is guaranteed in this process. The only part that I can guarantee is that regardless of whether you're able to get funded today or not, our goal is to figure out the first steps to get you funded. Everybody's first steps is different. The only part in this process that I can guarantee is that after the review, every client who works with us will have a clear, detailed explanation and a clear funding roadmap for what they need to do in order to qualify for funding, right? So understand here, the last thing here, we like to talk about this. Getting funding is just the beginning. A lot of people think, hey, I got funded, my job is done. No, getting funded is just the beginning. Once you get the money, we also want to help you get access and get you resources for growth. So when you work with us, you do get access to our education platforms. You're going to learn how to reinvest and scale the business funding and credibility that you've been able to get. You're going to get credit optimization. So remember, we want to help you in the short term, but we want to help you set up for those long term, for those future funding rounds. We do have a referral program. So after a client gets funded, they are able to work with us and help us promote our services. You can actually earn income while helping others get funded. And equity consulting, one of my favorite. It is invite only. But if you have a performing business, you're looking for acquisitions, you're looking to grow through acquisitions, and your business does qualify for that, we can actually help you with the equity consulting for the acquisitions. And again, our goal is not just to get you funded. You getting funded and access to capital means absolutely nothing if you don't leverage it the right way. And so ultimately, again, we want to turn that funding into opportunity and being able to purchase cash flow. So the way we work, Christina, on the PDF, on this copy, the PDF already has the link there for you. That is a clickable link. I will put it back in the chat just in case I did put it there earlier. You can use the PDF and the link in there, or Christina and her team will put a link in the chat. Ultimately, what we get is we want to help you determine the first steps to get you funded. Remember, whether you think you're ready for funding for $1 million a day, whether you're just trying to figure out an exact game plan, or whether you've got some credit issues right now that you got to figure out how to resolve so that you can get in a position to funding, that's our goal, is to ultimately help you figure out the first steps for you to get funded. So there will be a link in the chat. You click that link in order to take the first steps to get funded. Now, when you opt in, I also want to make sure that you know how to get support. I want to make sure that we set the expectations. Again, I'm someone who sets very clear expectations. When you work with us, I want you to want to work with us. So understand, when you enroll, when you submit your information, you'll get an opportunity to book with someone on our team. Please, you're going to get text confirmations. You're going to get email confirmations. Monitor for your emails, very important. Monitor your spam or your promotional folder immediately after booking. It should go to your main inbox. However, sometimes depending on technology, depending on your email settings, your emails might be going to your spam or your promotion folder. If it does, please review that and then also mark it future as a saved email, and then it will go to your main inbox. Now, please note, we are primarily a text-based support team. Every number you get a text from, you can text back to that number. You can communicate with that number. There is someone on our team who will communicate with you. And understand, we service thousands of clients simultaneously. I want to make this very clear. We serve thousands of clients simultaneously. We have a very large network. We have a very large support team. But understand, funding is not a one-size-fits-all. Therefore, it takes our team time in order to communicate with the individual responses for every person we work with. So understand that responses can take 3 to 24 business hours. Oftentimes, you'll get a response in 1 to 6, but sometimes volume's just a little later. Sometimes you might reach out to us later in the day. So understand, responses can take 3 to 24 business hours. I assure you, My team sees it, they will respond to you. We believe in high levels of customer service, high levels of support. I promise you, we will communicate with you. You just have to be a little patient because sometimes, again, it can take 3 to 24 business hours. Now, with that being said, I want you to understand the hours of operation. We are located in Orlando, Florida. We operate on the Eastern time zone. We serve nationally. We create hours that serve nationally, right? But understand, Monday through Friday, we are open 10 a.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. When you communicate with us, you can expect a response within those timeframes. If it's not within those timeframes, no one on our staff is going to communicate. No one's going to see it. You can text us 15, 20 times. If it's out of business hours, no one's going to see it. They will respond to it whenever they see it. Now, Saturday, we still have staff on, but we just have a little bit shorter, right? So we're on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays we are closed. My team works very hard. They work very long hours. That's why they take a short day on Saturday, and we're closed on Sunday. You will not get any response on Sunday. Please understand that. Now that we've kind of covered everything, and I hope that everything was clear, I hope that you got a lot of value. I hope that we broke this down in baby food and make it real simple and digestible. But of course, there's probably a couple questions. So I always do have some time at the end. I've got like 15, 20 minutes that I can clear up any questions, concerns, whatever that you have. So with that being said, as a favor, I will drop this back in the chat for you just to make sure that you guys have the presentation for today, just to make it easier. So you have a reminder. You should see that in just a moment. And now, Christina, however you want to run it, we can do the Q&A and make sure that we get all of these people's questions answered.
Thank you so much, Dorsey. I just want to say thank you for all of your time and commitment. I really appreciate you pouring into the community and just adding so much value always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So without further ado, I do want to be respectful of his time. So everyone who has a question for Dorsey, please raise your hand. So I'm not answering any questions at the moment. We are answering questions based off of funding and what Dorsey has just gone over, okay? So we'll start Q&A right now. So the first hand that I see is Samuel.
Grand Rising, and thank you, Mr. Dorsey and Christina, for putting this together. I am pleasantly surprised by the transparency of the information, and the presentation was well put together. I probably would not have formatted it better myself.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So my question is about business funding through the trust that is not guaranteed by person. I saw that you touched on the process. What would you recommend as far as starting out and being prepared for that process? Just going straight.
Understood. So again, let me set the clear expectations, because the information you give me, I want it to always be valid. So is the first thing I want to say is that it's absolutely possible to get a trust funded. Now understand, a trust is different, because a trust is not an entity, it's a contract. So that's what you have to understand first. So when it comes to banking, it goes to a different department because they're reviewing the contract, not necessarily just the entity. So it's absolutely possible to get a trust funded, but there's two ways the trust has to get funded. It either has to have corporate credit and has to have strong enough trust credit to establish it on its own, or it has to have verifiable assets. Trust, a lot of times, especially when people are looking for no PG, the 3 C's that we look at credit or the 3 C's that we look when it comes to getting funding is credit, cash, or collateral. A lot of times when you're dealing with trust and you want no PG, they want to see the collateral. So they want to see the actual assets that the trust owns. So it's possible to get the trust funded, but you need verifiable assets or really, really strong trust credit, which would transition to corporate credit. So what I teach personally is how to leverage public entities like LLCs and corporations to leverage their public banking system, use the funding in the best interest of the trust, and keep the trust private. Does that make sense?
Yes, that sounds very much like get the LLC or the corporation funded and then loan the money over to the
There you
trust.
go.
Got it.
There you go. Or use the funding to purchase assets and then convey the assets to the trust, right? Whatever works best for you. But yes, that's the right way of thinking.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. It looks like Michelle Fox is up next.
Yep, thank you. So thanks for the presentation. That was great. And Samuel kind of asked one of my questions already. So I just had a quick one about the DUNS number. Once we have that number established and we start building credit, how do we monitor that as opposed to like, monitoring your personal credit?
Understood. So you can set up accounts through Dun and Bradstreet. The simplest way that I found, there's an app. It's called NAV, N-A-V. There's an app. You download it. You can put all of your business info in there. And once you actually establish those business profiles, you can actually track all of that information on there. So you can use the NAV app or you can use DNB themselves.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Of course, you're very welcome. All right. It looks like Raymond is up next.
Yes, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you for that mountain of information. I like the way it was precisely put and clearly presented. So, but I have a question as to how do we get in touch with, how do I or we get in touch with your company or business again?
Absolutely. So it looks like Christina put a link in here. I'm going to resend it. So there's a couple things and I'll make sure everyone sees it. So I just copied and pasted Christina's link. The other thing that you can do is in that PDF, I put a PDF in the chat. That way, if you didn't take notes or whatever the case may be, you have everything that I covered today. At the bottom of that, whenever you get to the first steps, there's a section in there. It says, take the first steps to get funded. You can click that. That is a clickable link. And what'll happen, you'll submit a very basic intake form. Takes you like 15, 20 seconds to do it. And then after that, you will get an opportunity to schedule with someone on our team.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, it looks like Anthony Walker is up next.
Okay.
How are you doing?
All right. Let's see what's going on with my camera. All right, I got it on. Hey, okay. So you're in Orlando. I actually lived in Lake Mary for 25 years. So
awesome.
Just moved to Key West.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my question is, like for instance, my wife and I, we want to acquire something large because we want to like do a resort, health retreat, stuff like that. So when it comes to acquiring a large business, both our credits definitely need work. So I guess we would just contact you and get the process started. And about how you think like 12 months would be quick enough to get our credit straightened out so that we could actually do funding for something large, or would it be better for us to work with investors that team up with us plus our what funding that you can offer us? How would that work?
Phenomenal question. So I don't have enough information today to know what your credit report is, right? Just because everything is nuanced. I'll tell you, I've had clients in the past, they think it might be a long time for them to get funded, and it's often a lot shorter than what it is. So I'll just say that the only thing I can say is right now I don't have enough information, but I can assure you that once you go through the intake process, the team knows exactly what's going on. Once we see exactly what's going on, then we can create the better time frame. So I would say go through the intake process first. Once we see that, we can put that time frame on there. I'll just say that most times, because you're working with us, you're working with professionals, oftentimes people think that they're a lot further from funding than what they actually are. So that's the first thing I would say for the credit-based side. Now, if you're acquiring businesses, credit does matter. It still does matter, but it's more based on the performance of the business. So if you're acquiring businesses, obviously you still want to fix your credit to give you the most options. But I've done a lot of acquisitions, and I've seen a lot of times where if you acquire an already performing business, you can get financing based on the performance of that business or the future projections of that business. That's why I say acquisitions are a little bit unique. Depends on the current credit profile, depends on how the actual business is evaluated as well too. As far as investors versus funding, I can't tell you what's right or wrong within that time period, right? You have to kind of make that decision yourself. I'll just say that I myself try to leverage as much of the bank's money as possible before I go get investors, because that way, even if I'm doing a multi-million-dollar deal or whatever the case may be, and even if I need investors, I have more negotiating power by bringing my own money to the table. So even if you can't fund the whole deal, I found best practice, at least come to the table with some money so that, again, you have more negotiating power for that particular deal. But as far as credit, like I said, I would just schedule an appointment with the team. They'll take you through the intake process, and after we see that, we really know exactly what's going on, and then we can better advise.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good, because I actually paid a credit repair company to start the process a little bit less than a month ago.
Okay.
But based on what you're saying, I would rather complete the process with you, because the next step they're going to ask me for is money to get lines of credit. And then they said like $7,000 to $10,000 to purchase an existing business that has history, so that it can build up my credit history for my business. So based on the fact that you're saying that you take 10% after the results are given, I would go with your company after this initial credit cleanup is done, because it doesn't make sense really paying for something up front and then you might not get the results that you're promised.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been around the industry a long time. I've seen a lot of different scenarios. We can better advise. What they might be talking about is purchasing an H Corp or acquiring a business. I'm not really sure, but I could just tell you, after you talk with our team, we'll know a lot more information, and then we can, better advise based on what you're actually looking for, setting, realistic expectations, realistic timelines. It's just that I don't know enough information about it today. And when someone speaks, I always want them to have the most up-to-date, valid information, and never say that I gave them, misinformation. So I just wouldn't want to lead you the wrong way, set the wrong expectation. Then we go through the intake process, and it's something completely different. But I can assure you,
Understood.
And we will definitely get you taken care of.
Okay. All right. Thanks again.
Of course. You're very welcome. All right. I've got a couple more. It looks like, forgive me if I pronounced the name wrong, but it looks like Yvonne Larson.
You nailed it. And
awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Usually people say Yvonne. So I'm very impressed that you chose Yvonne. All right. So I've got first an acknowledgement, and then I have a general question and a personal question. So first I'm going to say, I most resemble your success story with Eric. I've had my business for 28 years, and until March of 2023, I never knew that there was a difference between personal credit, business credit, corporate credit. And so for the last 2 years, I have invested so much money in trainings to understand this and try to get somewhere with this. And so the acknowledgement is, of all the things that I have pursued and there's knowledge that I've gained, this has been the most comprehensive, concise, and clear representation of the information. And I've never, in all of the things that I've come across, heard of a performance-based opportunity. So that speaks volumes to me, that how committed you are to your results. And so I'm very excited to be on this call, meeting you and getting this opportunity to work with you. I'm 1,000,000% going to do that.
Awesome.
So now for the general question, this is to help me reconcile between here it is, slide 34 and 35. So the funding sequence overview versus the what you need to get funded. If we're pursuing 5 to 10 banks to get funded, and in the next slide, it says that you can't have any more than 3 new inquiries over a 6 to 12 month period, that seems like there's a conflict. So how do you reconcile? How does that work? That part work?
Phenomenal question. So prefacing this by understanding that banks pull different bureaus, right? So the understanding that some banks, so you have to understand application rules. So the underwriting guidelines of one bank isn't necessarily others. So some banks are inquiry sensitive, some banks are not. So some banks care about inquiries, sometimes they're not. The next thing is, let's say, for example, we apply for 3 banks but one pulls from TransUnion, one pulls from Equifax, one pulls from Experian. That's 3 banks, but that's only 1 inquiry per bureau. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When the banks pull that information, they don't see what the other banks are reviewing because they're only reviewing specific credit profiles. So that's the one way. The second way here is whenever we do business funding, when I talk about doing multiple rounds of business funding, kind of like you spoke on it, there's different reports from the personal credit to the business credit. So sometimes when you go through this process, you may apply for business products that will be separate from the personal and will report to the business credit, but they may temporarily inquire on your personal credit. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
FCRA, which governs the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it governs the reporting of credit information, states that if information cannot be verified, that it must be removed. We leverage that to our benefit because it will temporarily inquire on the personal credit, but there's no record of it because it's on a separate business credit reporting, on a separate business credit report. Therefore, we can dispute that inquiry, keep the business products and business funding, and no longer have that inquiry on the personal credit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how we leverage that whenever we do business funding.
Okay. So then going to slide 22 about establishing a business, startup aged and acquisitions. So one of the programs that I paid for was training in creative financing for mergers and acquisitions. Okay. I'm a lifetime member of that. So I've once again been training myself from every angle around this. And so I do understand the aged, I understand the concepts of these things. So my personal question is, having already been in business for 28 years, beginning my business in Texas, moving to California, and attempting to do this whole proper structuring thing, failing. And now I've moved back to Texas. So I'm basically starting over again. And I assume if I had this call, you would be able to stick me in one of the proper category, startup, aged, or acquisitions. But that's really my goal in moving back to Texas, is starting my business correctly. I just moved back to Texas Memorial Day weekend. So getting my business started correctly and discontinuing, working my butt off, having a very expensive job that I call a business. So I've worked really hard for 28 years and I feel I really don't have anything to show for it. So, and I'm smarter than that.
Listen, so the first thing is, sometimes you can be the smartest person in the world, but if people teach you the wrong, smart means to me just your ability to learn the information. But if someone teaches you misinformation, they're giving you misstrategy. So you may be the smartest person in the world and execute to a T, but you might just not have the most up-to-date information, which is fine, right? It's fine. It was a learning experience. It's okay. You're here where you are now. I would say consult with our team, because sometimes, think of it like this. A business is just like you. You can change your name, you can change your location, you can change your phone number, you can change all of this information. So even though it may currently not look great, doesn't mean that just after a little bit of work, a little bit of restructuring, that we can reposition the business to be in a great position to move forward.
I've had thousands of clients. I have a 4.9 rating. I have ridiculous reviews. It's just what I'm definitely not structured for a bank to ever consider me a success. By other measures, I'm an extraordinary success, staying in business for 28 years.
Absolutely.
So so I just want to do things differently. So, okay, great. So, you now will have a client for life, and I'll be your next Eric success story.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Yvonne, just fill out the information, work with the team, and I promise you, we will definitely get you taken care of.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your presentation
your heart. You are very welcome. All right, I've got enough time for 2 or 3 more if we can make it quick. Looks like Lisa Marie is up next.
Hi, Mr. Dorsey. Yeah, that was a great everything here. Now, my big thing is I had identity theft and I still continue having it. So I froze all my accounts. And the IRS, took forever to look into it. And they found that I did have identity theft. So, I mean, how do I go about? I could tell that other guy that paying for his credit credit to get better. Doesn't work. I mean, they didn't do nothing for me, and I put out all this money for it. Also, yeah, I did credit cards where I can, pay them off. I put money into them to pay them off
Mhm.
to get some kind of credit. That's my big thing is the credit. Like, what do I do with that identity? Should I unfreeze my accounts so they can do what, I mean, but there was a lot of soft inquiries, stuff like that. So,
Understood.
yeah,
So first of all, it's unfortunate that you are dealing with identity theft. I've worked
yeah.
with a lot of clients in the past who have worked with that, but the
Okay.
benefit of it is that you have evidence that it is identity theft. So I would say it's unfortunate that you might not have worked with a great resource previously whenever you were going through the dispute process.
Yeah.
As a clarity, you have the rights yourself to dispute it. They actually, you can go to ftc.gov if you're dealing with identity theft. There's a lot of free information on there that will give you about how to dealing with identity theft and how to resolve that. You have a lot of rights yourself where if you want to take the time to go through there, they give you a lot of information there. But you have a lot of laws and a lot of resources in place that protect you whenever you have been a victim of identity theft. So that's the first thing that I would say.
I've been doing that with the CFPD, whatever.
CFPD.
All the complaints. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, it's just making sure that you have all of the documentation, making sure that it's structured the right way, and then being able to deal with that. I just don't have enough information as of now to be able to advise. But again, like I was telling everyone, if you go through that intake process, our team walks you through exactly what's going on. And we give you to a detail, like the dates, the dollar amounts, everything that really needs to be done on your report.
Okay. All righty. And then also with an LCC now, I'd sat dormant for a while. So how do I, like I've been a secretary, vice president, my hubby to be is the president, to it. So, but it's sat dormant for a while.
Okay.
So we haven't really done anything. So because of the funding part, and me with the identity. So just go through the intake process and.
Yes. Now, that will definitely take you through there. Now, if you're going to eventually look for business funding, we would have to bring that business from not being dormant to make sure
Right.
legitimize it. But yeah, as far as first steps, as mentioned, everybody's first steps is different. So I would just say take process. Let's see how everything is actually reporting, and then we can move on from there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dorsey. You have a great one.
Of course, you too.
All right.
I've got time for one more. It looks like Miss Dina Brown Williams. How you doing today?
Hi, Mr. Dorsey. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yes, I have a quick question. How
ma'am.
does it work if your LLC is not actually in your name because you have a registered agent? How can you still get business funding?
So it's going to go back to the operating agreement. So
Uh-huh.
you want to have your LLC paperwork. If you have if you're on the paperwork, some states just don't publicly report who owns whatever entities. So you just have to. It's going to go back to you if it's an LLC. They're just going to ask for your operating agreement just to see that you're actually authorized to do business on behalf of the business.
Okay, got it. But they'll have to have you operating something to show that you have some type of connection to it.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So, for LLCs, it's an operating agreement. For corporations, it's called bylaws.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Great presentation as usual.
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay. That is all that looks like I covered all the hands raised today anyways. That is all the time that I do have today. I do have to get ready for another call. As always, it has been a pleasure to be here. I hope that you guys got a lot of value. Thank you for the feedback. I would love to assist whoever is really looking forward to getting the first steps to get them funded. So Christina, 7 Ways to Wealth. I appreciate you guys. You are in a great community, a phenomenal community. As always, I appreciate you, and I will look forward to talking to you very soon.
Thank you, Brian. We
Thank
appreciate you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So that was so amazing. I'm just so grateful for the educators that we have here in this program. With that said, I do want to open up the floor for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions based off of the information that I went over today, I would love to answer your questions. Miss Dina, your hand is still up. Do you have a question, my dear? Or was it just for Brian? All right. So, Ayana, how are you?
Hi, Christina. I'm great. It's something wrong with my camera, so I can't cut it on. But
Oh, no problems, my dear. How are you?
I've
I'm
worked
I'm glad you're great.
and thank you again for today, everybody. I can't stress but to say that this is probably the first time I took this course. My mother actually put me on to you, and I signed up within like maybe a month, I don't know. But I've been telling everybody I signed up as an affiliate. So you'll be hearing a lot from me. But
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One, thank you for taking the leap of faith, Ayana, and then thank you for signing up as an affiliate and for referring the program. I really, really, really appreciate that because we're trying to build a community up. We're trying to build this community up and just impact as many families and lives as possible. So I appreciate you, your mom, and then everyone that you are assisting with joining us.
man, and I appreciate you as well. So my question is regarding putting a property into a trust that may already have debt in it. So the first question is, does the trust inherit the debt, or is it not possible to transfer a property into a trust if it does have debt?
So when you say property, do you mean real estate?
Yes.
Okay, so you can place real estate into a trust, and if it has a mortgage or a HELOC, that property can still be deeded over into the trust. So the trust is now going to be financially responsible and liable for the asset. And that mortgage is going to, if it's on your personal credit, it's going to remain in your personal credit. And so that's going to remain like intact. So the mortgage is going to remain intact, and then it's also going to remain intact on your credit. So, but yeah, the house doesn't need to be paid off, and you can deed it over.
Okay, wonderful. And also, I have companies. I had started a business a long time ago, helping people start businesses, just incorporating them. And I have these, I guess you could call it seasons because they've been incorporated for a while. Companies that are kind of just sitting there collecting dust. And I'm wondering, what can I do with them to add value to my business trust?
Honestly, I will tell you just to use them for funding purposes. So that we would set up a lot of statutory entities just for funding reasons, and they're disregarded. So they don't really have, they don't have like income or they don't hold assets. We just use them to get money from the bank. So if you want to use all of these entities that you already have legalized, instead of dissolving them, just get money from the banks.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ayana.
You're welcome.
And next we have Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Whoop. Sorry, there we are. So I have a question about gifts or loans. Okay. So is there a limit, like, you know how if you give somebody a gift, there's like a limit, as far as the government's concerned on that gift before it's like taxable, right? So is there anything like that for loans to or from the trust?
No.
Okay. And if everybody in the trust agrees, is there ever a time when a loan can be forgiven? And let me give you context. Like I'm thinking about, okay, so I transfer my property into the trust, and let's say, God forbid, somebody in the family is sick, right? And they need the funding for whatever, I'm like thinking like worst case scenario. So if you need to pull liquid from an asset that's within the trust, is it just up to everybody who's within the trust, beneficiaries, trustee, whether or not, like what the terms of that exchange is
Yeah,
basically?
yes, it is. So you create those terms and conditions, and if you decide to do loan forgiveness, you are able to do that.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, Michelle. Thank you. All right, next we have Stu.
Just got to the mute button. Hey, Christina, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm fired up. Day 4. I'm loving it. Just super thorough all the way through.
Woo woo.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Um, well, I had a couple of questions. I remember a couple of days ago you had mentioned that you don't use the statutory entities when you're one for one and your properties, you kind of put them each in a trust. What I want to know is, do you put them in specifically land trust?
No, I put them in, it depends on the property. So I put them primarily, I'm a real estate investor, so I put them in business trust.
Okay, just one for one business trust. That's it.
Mm-hmm. It just depends, but yeah, typically, so that's my strategy.
Okay. When we were talking about asset inventory list, have you ever, for any of your trusts, just gone super detail oriented as far as doing like a full itemization or like a taxonomy where each item you have, you actually pretty much listed on the inventory list, and then you actually put a coinciding barcode to it. So if anybody did look at it, like, wow, that is registered as trust property. If they were doing an audit, it has an actual, barcode and things of that nature. Have you gone that far or seen that that's even worth it?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. I don't know what other people do, but I haven't gone to that extent. But it does sound like a good idea, Stu.
All right, all right. Well, I'm just gonna follow you, the expert. So I appreciate you clearing up a lot of things for me. Thank you.
You're welcome, Stu.
Now, I know you've seen this in the past where people have, for trust names, used like their first, middle name, and last, or first and last. What say you in reference to that, and what have you seen in the industry regarding that?
That's the biggest mistake that someone can do is use a combination of their first name, first with last. So don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay. Have you ever heard of the phrase? And I really appreciate like you actually showing the value of what the first trustee is. Like that is nobody's ever really just pointed that out. Just even saying like, hey, your establishment date is really between the first trustee and the guarantor. And that kept me with different dates that people make. I'm like, wow, that's very powerful. That's just when two people get together. That's the contract. That's the agreement.
Yeah, a meeting of the minds.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you ever heard of a terminology used above the first trustee called chairman of the board trustees? And like, have you ever had to use that?
I have. I've heard of it. I've heard of it before. So, I'm not sure, what position that they have. So it's really specific to that trust. And so sometimes they get unique and they will go ahead and create positions. And so they can name them whatever they want. Right. So if you want to use like words like president and vice president or chairman or chairperson, you can. So you have to understand that the trust entity is contractual, and so you create what you want in that contract.
Got you. Okay. And yesterday you had mentioned that the private family trust was the beneficiary of the FBL. right? But at one point, isn't there somewhere where the FBO is also a beneficiary of the private family trust?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. And you had also mentioned too that for the for the ministry, you can pretty much only disperse to other entities, right? Not individuals.
A distribution? No, so I mean, I wouldn't use the word disperse, right? Because if you have people that are 1099, you're dispersing. So individuals cannot be beneficiaries and receive a distribution. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about grants? Because we
Right.
spoke about grants too, so individuals can't be like grant recipients can't be individuals as well.
Let me probably give you more background where where the question is coming from, and that might be able to give a better response. I've heard people saying, "Hey, I've turned everything over to my ministry, and then now my ministry takes care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Ministry pays all my bills."
Mm-hmm.
Can that be done?
So I would say I would say you have to be careful. Okay. So it's all in the way that you structure it, and it's all in the position that you serve within the ministry, and it's all in the compensation plan that you have documented within the ministry.
Okay. And I've also noticed that with the articles of incorporation, or just the articles of what we go through, and then the bylaws, they feel like they're very similar.
Yes, it's
Well,
true. I mentioned that yesterday. I said everything you see in the trust constitution, you're going to see it in the bylaws, but it's going to be elaborated. So there are duplicates. So for example, the purpose and intent, you're going to see it in the trust constitution, you're going to see it in the bylaws.
excellent. That was my last question for the day. I yield. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, boss.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next we have Anthony. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Christina.
Hey.
I have another question here. Now when it comes to the trust, can the trust be a partner with my LLC, like one of the managing members or partner for my LLC?
Yes.
Okay, and in that, with that structure, would the trust, would the LLC still be able to donate or distribute or pay for services rendered to the LLC, or would that be like a conflict of interest because they're a partner?
Y- You kind of missed me. You said would the LLC be able to donate to the LLC? I think I missed.
Oh, yeah, the LLC still be able to either donate to the trust or pay the trust for services rendered if the LLC did perform certain services like subcontract.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you're saying funds that are inside of the LLC, can they be dispersed to the trust? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, that answers that question. The other question I had was, I've lost it. But yeah, I was just based on some of what the other people were saying, I had another question and now I can't remember what it was. So I guess I'll have to ask that question tomorrow or whenever it
Okay.
comes back.
Well, we have a lot of fun things planned tomorrow, so I can't wait to tell you guys, even though you already know.
All right. Well, I'll just concede for today and then we'll talk again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, bye.
All right, next we have Renee. Hey, Renee, how are you? Renee, are you still available? I don't see you.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't know. I'm on my tablet, so I don't know how to unmute and stuff. But
Oh,
thank
okay.
you so much. I wanted to say I've been taking your classes since last year, and I feel like every time I take the class, I learn something new. So thank you so much for that.
You're
Um,
so welcome.
Thank you. So
It,
I
it,
have
it, it is a different experience, even though it's the same material. You either hear it different, it clicks, it connects the dots, the puzzles, or even it's because it's a different group of people. They ask very unique questions that you probably haven't heard before, or that it's you seeing in a different way. So I love that, Renee. That's how
absolutely,
keep coming
absolutely.
back for more.
I will, I will. So I have kind of like a two-layer question, but it's similar. So I know you walked us through the process of obtaining our EIN number, and it was asking for the business address. Do you recommend that we do the iPostal address first before we adopt the EIN number, or
Yes.
just okay?
Yes, I do. That would be the best practice so you don't have to go backwards and start making changes. And
Okay, and my second question is I went to do my iPostal and I think I may have done it wrong. So before I call them, I just want to ask you. So instead of putting it in my business name, I put my name. That was incorrect.
correct, yeah, you're supposed to put the trust name.
Okay, so I will call them and I will change that and close that and do it over again. So I stopped when I did the first one. I said, I'm not going to do the other two because I don't know if this is right. So thank you so
Okay.
much for that.
You're
Have a
so
good one.
welcome. You too, Renee. Thank you. Appreciate you for being here. All right, next we have Miss Yvonne. How are you, Miss Yvonne?
Well, Lisa was ahead of me. You can see I get emotional because I
I'm
clearly need
good.
I clearly have to work through some emotional disappointments with my business journey. But I'm just grateful to be here.
You
I'm really
and we're here to help and support you along this journey. And it is a long journey because
so grateful.
I've been a business owner for 10 years and it is exhausting.
Yeah. Well, and when like I shared with Mr. Dorsey, it's like when you invest in people who say they're experts and you get wrong information and you proceed under incorrect information, I wouldn't say cripples you, but it definitely disables you from building wealth. Like it really I what did he say? What did he say something about stuck in the saving for survival, or like I mean it was whatever. There was a phrase he said that like really rung true for me, and I was like, wow, that's me. And I'm like, that's me as Eric too, like always funding my own business, just I'm paying. There's no extra for me, so it's just always make it, pay the bills, keep the business open. And it's like it's been the most expensive job ever rather than a business that creates a legacy. So I'm cannot express how grateful I am to be here in this class. So
And we're so
I'm
grateful
not gonna
to
cry.
be
I'm
here.
not gonna cry again. So um what I wanted to understand with the trust promissory note template is the purpose of how you decide upon what percentages you're charging, what the purpose of that is, if it's compound, and at what uh, sequence is it compounding? Is it a daily compound, a monthly, and whatever? Like, what is the purpose of charging yourself interest? If it's your trust and you're this, that, and the other thing, it's like all you. Is it generating money? I don't understand the concept.
Okay, perfect. So, I'm very sensitive when it comes to words.
Yes.
And so I want to put you on track and tell you that that the trust is not you. And
Okay.
you are not the trust.
Okay.
So we need to be very mindful of that and walk in that understanding that the trust is separate from you. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So the way that it is designed is when you go to fund this entity that is not you, you are using your personal funds. Okay, right? You're
Okay.
using money from wherever, from either your W-2 or maybe another entity, which is your business. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, those funds, they belong to you or they belong to another entity, okay? And so you are entitled to get those funds back, right? It's not that and a lot of people, they do this. They pour their W-2 money into the business and they never get it back. That is the wrong way to do things. And so you want to lend the money to the business and you want the business to give it back to you. And if you determine that you want interest, you want interest. Now, the way, so because there's a separation between you and the trust, right? The trust is not designed for you to continue to pour, pour, pour. The trust is designed for you to acquire the funding, right? So you're going to use your personal funds in order to start the trust, right? Because if you don't have any funds, if you don't have any funding right now from a bank, then you're going to use your personal funds. So that's why I use that $1,000 just because it's easy, right? Because if you go to Truist tomorrow, they're like, hey, you can't open up a trust account if you don't give us $100. Right? If you go to Wells Fargo, $500, right? Another bank. So you don't have access to capital from a bank. So you have to use your own personal funds that may come from your checking account. You have to document that. Documentation is so vitally important. And so that's why we use the promissory note as an instrument for documentation. That's one. Two, you're documenting, I am lending the trust money, right? So the trust doesn't have to pay taxes on this money that I'm lending the trust, okay? But I do want this money back once the trust is able to pay me back, right? And so you're going to put the trust in a position to where it's able to acquire income producing assets. And so those assets are then designed to generate income for the trust, to put the trust in a position to pay you back and to give you interest, right? One example could be the life insurance policies, right? So it's generating compound interest, right?
Okay.
So you have to determine if you want to. Now, I've seen it to where we are generous, right? I've seen a lot of trustees do this to where they don't want to charge any interest, so put zero. If you don't want to charge any interest, put zero. And then you get to decide whatever the terms are. So if you want it to be for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, right? And then also Michelle made a good point too. If you decide in the future, hey, I want to forgive this loan and the trust doesn't have to pay me back,
Mhm.
you can do that as well.
2 follow-up questions. So what is the benefit to charging interest to me, or to you, to a person personally? And then the second is sequencing
So
the promissory. Okay.
you're not charging interest to you. You're receiving it. You're the
Yes,
lender.
I understand. And
Okay,
that's
so you're receiving it.
yeah.
So
What is the, yeah, go ahead.
So it's optional. It's just optional. So
No.
it is what you want it to be. So me personally, I would not give a loan and not receive interest. What
Okay.
is the benefit of me lending money to any entity or any individual and me not receive interest?
Okay. Got it.
Would the bank is a lender, would the bank give you a loan?
No, ever. No.
Okay. So we have best practice or
Okay.
standard. And so it's like if you don't want to charge, then put zero.
Okay.
But if you do, you want to get into that routine now.
Perfect.
Because
I understand that.
This is going to become
Yes.
larger than life, which is bigger than you. So you might as well start now.
Amen. Okay. Third thing, and this is the final thing. Am I understanding you correctly when you're saying that to go to a bank, it needs to have something to pull from? So that means the sequence of this is I create the promissory note and put that money into the bank of the trust so that when I go to the bank can pull from the trust. I'm not giving my money directly to the, it's going, that's the sequence. Am I understanding that correctly?
Okay, so I just need a little bit of clarity.
Yes.
Okay, so when you say, so you are opening up the bank account and you are lending money to the trust, and then that money is going to go directly to the trust fund. So when you are receiving funds for the trust, you as the trustee have to determine how are you going to dispose of those funds, right? So that's why we go to the extent of getting an EIN number for banking purposes, so that we can go ahead and open up a bank account, so that when that initial loan happens, that $1,000, you're not just out here in the wind like, okay, I have $1,000 that belongs to the trust now, right? That's for the trust now, and I've received it and accepted, but I have nowhere to put it.
Okay. So promissory note is just for documentation. It's not necessary. There's no cart before the horse situation with that.
Yes, it's for documentation. So you're going to put it inside of your binder, and it's also for you to have that instrument to know what are the terms and the conditions of this exchange.
Okay. Nobody's looking at this other than me. That's what I needed to understand.
Yeah, it's internal.
Listen, I'm just trying to put things in the right boxes in my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And documentation is so important. And that's why we provide you with these templates. Because at the end of the day, you want to have all of your ducks in a row, because you have a successor that's going to take over after you. And if only you know that you gave a loan and that is 2% interest, then that information dies with you. So you need to have everything documented.
Perfect. That is all. I'm gonna steal Stu's. I now yield the floor.
I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you, Miss Yvonne. That was a really good question. All right, next we have Lisa. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Hey, doll. And I was not referring earlier that you did not look beautiful, which you do. I look like shit. I want to excuse the French.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, you know what I go through. So, yeah, that was like, like shit. And
oh, no, yeah, I know you wasn't referring to me. I was just joking. I was like, you know what I was thinking? I was like, language, young lady.
Yeah, I apologize. I have a sailor mouth, believe me, from being from Brooklyn. But anyways, yeah, you look gorgeous. And again, hats off to you that I can't take my hat off. But anyways, can you be my grantor? Because I'm having a real trouble. Like, I don't. Okay, if not, can my one co-trustee be the grantor in one trust, and and be my co-trustee? But I think that was conflict, right? You can't.
Yeah, okay. So to answer your question, Miss Lisa, I do not serve as a grantor.
Okay.
So we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So if I was to say yes, then it would just put me in a position to where everybody would want me to be their grantor.
I hear you. Well, why not? You're just like right on everything. Okay, second, can all the trusts be gifted?
Can all the trustees gift?
Yeah. Yes. No, yeah. Yes. Okay. Great. That was my other one. Now that I told you about my revocable, now I put it under like the LM, like my initials. Technically, it's like not my full name.
Okay. Initials are good. Initials are, yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Cool. All righty. Well, that's it. I just want to read the quote for the day, if you don't mind.
Go for it, Miss Lisa.
Okay. Where's the one that we had? Okay. God does not promise a comfortable journey, only a safe landing.
I love that.
So there you go. You're a beautiful woman, man. I'm telling you what.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. I appreciate you. And thank you for that quote. It's kind of in alignment with something I said earlier today.
That's right. I said, I can't believe coach is like going right on the money. So I'm like, all right, for the day.
Yes, I love it. I had told one of my business partners, we were talking about like rebranding, and I said, I'm just gonna jump off the cliff and build a plane on the way down. And he was like, yeah, go for it, because we're doing rebranding and everything. So it was so funny. So I'm like, okay, yes, I love that.
But again,
it's not going to be a comfortable journey, but it's a safe landing.
It's a safe landing, exactly. Yeah. Now I was telling Mr. Darcy about that LLC. Now, if I don't know how he said, but I have to incorporate myself in it, like where. How can I put it? I'm like not vice president. He's the president, but technically it's under his name. I just work like underneath. So does my co-trustee and stuff. How
Um,
does that work to put in for the business?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Okay.
what you're talking about. So if you have your, is it an LLC?
Yes, yes, but like I said, I
Yeah,
told
so
Mr. Dorsey it was in Doman. You know, he hasn't used it either in a while, so.
Oh, okay. So basically what you want to do is once you put that LLC under the trust, then you want to update the operating agreement to show that you're authorized to manage the LLC because of the trust.
Got it, got it. Good.
So they're going to ask you, these lenders are going to ask you for your operating agreement. So have it locked, loaded, and ready to go, okay?
In the trust, correct? In the business trust.
No, so the
Ah,
operating agreement belongs to the LLC.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
so you just need to have that up to date.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you again, doll. You do
You're
wonderful
welcome.
work.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Bye.
Lisa. All right, next we have Ayana.
Hi, it's me again, me again. Okay.
Hey.
So my question is a where do I start question. So I'm gonna just use a generic name, ABC LLC. And I am joining this class and I'm establishing my business trust, family trust, and charitable trust. Um, and I have different other organizations as well. A 501c3 listed. The ministry is already the nonprofit entity, but with ABC LLC, where do I start first as far as the movements that I need to make in order to start funding my trust, and what is the relationship that my business is going to have with the trust, and like how am I operating that from stage one?
I mean, so you're gonna start with the business trust, establishing it and amending it. So tomorrow I'm gonna show you all those steps, okay? So you're gonna start with a business purchase agreement that we're gonna do. Then you're going to amend your articles of organization. You're gonna update your operating agreement for your LLC. And so now the business trust is going to operate the LLC.
Oh, okay. So that's a tomorrow's question.
Yeah, we're not done. So we're gonna go through everything dealing with the LLC. I'm gonna show you how to fill out the amendments. I'm gonna show you how to submit it to the Secretary of State, all of those things.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Anthony. Anthony, did you remember your question?
Well, sort of. But
Okay.
I had another question. It was about what I think she had just asked about the trustees gifting assets or a loan to the trust.
Mhm.
Now, can you loan monies or gift monies to the trust? And or I should say, can you loan monies to the trust at any time and just use the promissory notes
At
as
any time.
a recording?
Anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can lend money to the trust at any time and you can receive loans from the trust at any time. So that's how you can move money in and out of the trust. So for example, if you, let's just say that you need to get a haircut, right? That has nothing to do with the trust fund. And so you would not be using trust funds for that purpose. So you would receive a loan from the trust for $100. It would go into your personal account and then you would go get a haircut.
Okay. Okay. Now, as far as loans go, like if I loan the trust some money and I had it set that, all right, I want 2% interest on it. There is a common practice in the construction or renovation field where what they do is that, for instance, can you tack a fee onto it? Like you said, the, if the, if the trust doesn't pay the money back in the time that's specified.
Yeah, so
And
it's a penalty if the trust goes into default or if the money is not paid back in the time that's allotted, then you can put a penalty on there. So the penalty can be either a dollar amount or it could be a higher percentage of interest.
All right. And can that interest be, like say a percentage of the loan amount, or would it be more like a percentage, or can you do a percentage of the cash value or the assets that are in there as a penalty if they haven't, if the trust has defaulted?
So you get to decide what that penalty is. So if you want it to be, you know, a percentage or more interest or a specific amount, like a late fee, you know how some people will do a late fee? So
Right,
whatever,
right.
yeah, so whatever it is that you want it to be. So you have to decide what that term is.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I know in construction it has nothing to do with the loans, but like if somebody doesn't perform or fails to perform, and you get to a certain point, they start charging you back like maybe $1,000 a day or something like that. They have those type of they or $10,000 a day. They have those type of penalties when you're doing jobs and you don't complete it on time. So I was just, it was just curious. It was just something in my head. I was wondering.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so you can be creative with your terms and conditions.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for
You're
your knowledge and your experience, and appreciate.
you're so welcome, Anthony. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Sure. No problem. Thanks.
All right. Next we have Cayenne. Is it Cayenne? I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I'm gonna have to tattoo this to my eyelids.
Uh, I guess that was good enough. That was pretty good.
I see Conrad. I'm okay.
Yeah, so I put that on there for you to make it easier for you.
I know. I see it. It says, well, I can't see that. It says let
I said let's make
mine.
this. Yeah, yeah. So
But it's not Conrad.
that's easier. People call me that, so that's easier for you, I think.
Okay,
You know,
okay, and so, but what is your name?
Kayan Elijah Conrad.
Ayan. Okay, why I can't get it? I don't know. I do apologize.
Yeah, it's all good. We got Conrad up there for you.
I'm writing it down.
Write it down.
Right.
Um,
Phonetically.
yeah, yeah. So,
I gotta put an H in. There's an H in there? Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I put an
Yeah.
O. I put an O in there too. Okay, cool. I got it now.
All right. So I have a question on the promissory note, right? So we using the promissory note for the business trust or the LLC?
No, the promissory note is for any trust that you're going to lend money to, or any trust that you're going to receive a loan from. It's for the trust. It's not for the LLC. You can use it for the LLC if you want to. Do you lend money to your LLC?
I mean, I'm trying to just put it all together to get everything kind of like organized. Because I'm just kind of thinking to where is like with a promissory note, can we not use the promissory note to build credit? Because you're actually it has to be paid back. Um, you can use that to build credit for that entity.
Yes, you can. So that's why I told the last person, I said, be creative, use it however you want to use it.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I'm like, the UTC, which keeps tracks of, you could put it on there, and if it pays off, then you say it was paid or whatever, whatever. But yeah, so and also on that promissory note, like you're creating one. Do you know? I guess it depends on the bank. Can you sell the promissory note? Because excuse me,
It does depend on the financial institution. So I can't even answer that to tell you yes or no.
yeah, because because they do it all the time. So I'm
Of
thinking
course
like
they do. Of
if
course they do.
we're creating this and then we just all right, we just sell it for however, and I don't know, just kind of the best way to help create funds for the trust and also build credit at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like my only question. But it seems like the LLC is what's building the credit. I guess easier to build the credit with.
You're correct. The LLC is easier because it's statutory. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Just, hmm.
So,
All right.
so with the business trust, you have to keep in mind that if you're going to choose to build credit for the business trust, you're pulling it into the public because now it's going to have a public record. Okay, so some people decide not to do that. Obviously, Brian Dorsey decided not to do that. So he uses his statutory entities to build credit because he doesn't want to pull his business trust into the public. So that's a decision that you have to make. And so I tell people, if you're going to build credit with your business trust, do not place any assets in there. Just use it for credit purposes only.
Exactly. Yeah. So you just create a business trust for that.
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. But you I like that color, looks good on you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kion.
All right. All right. Have a good one.
Got it right. All right, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, next we have Stu for round 2. Then we have Tash, and then we are landing this plane, guys.
Yes, I'm back. I just wanted to, if you don't mind, I just wanted to throw an idea out here to the community.
Oh, okay.
It's something that I've seen that's consistent, and I think people are having unconscious private conversations in their head. Right? So here's what I mean.
The way you put that. I'm gonna have to accuse them of having unconscious private conversations in their head. I'm like, Stu said.
Absolutely. Timestamp this. Okay.
Yes, that's a fact.
And I say that because you have put a great community together, even with a spreadsheet, where we can reach out to other people and ask them to be different positions within our trust. And I think the problem that people are having when they're saying, I can't find a trustee, I can't find a grantor, especially with a grantor, the private conversation I think that they're having unconsciously in their mind are saying, I'm having challenges because I don't want to reach out to someone I don't know and then ask them for their social security number, right? This is a private unconscious conversation that makes this thing look harder than what it is. So just an idea as a solution. Hey, guess what? Reach out to someone and say, hey, will you be my grantor? And if you don't mind, we can get on a Zoom and I can give you my information if you don't mind. So while you're doing yours, we can swap, or if you don't mind, I'll give you my social. We can go right on and do it. And now that relieves a whole different trust barrier. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that there's different ways to kind of skin a cat and be able to really massage and network and work that list to your advantage.
I heard you say massage. No. Why did he use that word, massage and network? Okay.
I don't want to use that. My apologies. You
right.
Like a week away from the Diddy trials. I'm sorry.
Right, please. Oh my God. He about to shut down the Zoom call. And like I told Miss Yvonne, I'm like, I'm sensitive when it comes to words.
My apologies. Network. That's why I said network. Network. That's right. Right. No, we're not talking about any physical hands on.
Right.
My apologies.
So funny. I'm telling you.
No baby oil, no oil. We're not talking about any of that. My apologies. Just
this is hilarious. Okay, so I definitely agree with you. And that's why I tell you that we've created a circle of trust where the people in your community already know that you need a grantor, or not a grantor, but they already know what the grantor duties are and the grantor responsibilities are, which is to execute the trust and obtain the EIN number. The second thing that I need a lot of people to know is that they don't have to hand you their social security. Do you see how we went on irs.gov? Your grantor can go on irs.gov and apply for the EIN and never have to give you their social security, because they can do the application, download the PDF and email it to you, and boom, you have your EIN. That's what majority of our community members do. They'll obtain the EIN for you. They don't have to give you their social security. So we got to think outside of the box. That's the best practice, is to have the grantor do the application.
Beautiful. See, great minds think alike. I'm
Woo,
glad that was
woo.
able to come out here on the line to say, and then I just have one question before my final yield. Uh,
Mhm.
just in reference to what you were just talking about earlier, it was definitely a question that I had as well. Have you been able to take something that has basically a private value and allow a third party to be able to verify it as a public asset to add to the balance sheet of your trust? And then how do you convey, if you have any assets, I guess, that might be even listed, say, as a trust, to be able to temporarily assign them over to your public LLC to give it value for a loan, if that is the protocol?
Okay, so you lost me. So have I done that? No, I haven't taken anything personal and done a valuation so that I can place it somewhere else. I haven't. And what was the second question?
Right, and then just to make sure we were clear on that, I definitely appreciate your answer. I'll just piggybacking on what we all were thinking when the gentleman asked the question a little bit earlier. I think it was kind of that basically, for many of us that would love to take this further in terms of our circle of trust, we can actually issue credit to each other.
Oh, yes,
Kind of
yes,
thing,
yes.
right? That's kind of where we were going, but sometimes, right? So sometimes you
A-
see,
and that is a fantastic idea. So it's gonna have to take one of you guys to be the pioneer of that, because I've heard of other people in other communities doing it. It's just that it's not a practice that we currently have. So it might be up to you to have that torch and lead the way.
I would love to. It's just a build up. I've tried that a couple times. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of having everyone who definitely want to follow through with it.
Mhm.
Um, and the reason why I asked that is because you've seen, like, say, on Dun and Brad, right? If you're a verifiable trade reporting company, that's one piece, and then they use scrapers in the general piece to pick up information. So even if we did do, say, UCC ones and we filed them, it still picks up there. So I would just want to inquire when that sparked, because I know where he was going with it, was, hey, if you had any experience of using, say, a third party to say, hey, these private promissory notes that have been filed in the public with the private promissory note, which is one and security agreement, boom, that is a verifiable, public, debt. And we can say that's just as high on the rating scale as any other tier two private financial lending institution, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does, and I agree with you. So me personally, I haven't gone to that extent, but I've heard through the grapevines that others have had success.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to give clarity to that part two question, I was just asking, like, okay, just as hey, we don't have any assets in the business trust that is attached to the LLC as a disregarded entity. But if we're filing promissory notes, and let's just say the trust does have assets, in order to leverage those for banking funding purposes, do you ever temporarily assign them to the disregarded entity prior to going to the bank, so the LLC looks like it has those assets of the trust in order to pull down what you need? Or are you able to show that that trust is the single member entity, and you can show the attachment where they can still leave those assets at the trust and then use it as an evaluation for that public entity?
Yeah, so what I've seen is that as long as the trust is the manager of that LLC, you can leave it inside of the trust.
Oh, that's the answer. Thank you. I yield. See you. Talk to you tomorrow, and see you tomorrow too.
Okay, fantastic. Sounds
Thank
good. All right, next we have Tash. My throat is dry.
Hello, Christina. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Tash. How are you?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I only have one question. Know that earlier throughout the information that was being shared, Dun and Bradstreet, among others, were thrown out there. as far as business credit. Do I need that type of I guess D&B, Dun and Bradstreet, or any of those for each trust, each business trust that I?
You only need a DUNS number if you're going to build credit, because you are going to be creating a public record for that trust.
Okay.
So you have to choose one trust. If you are going to build business credit for the trust, you have to choose one trust to
Okay.
do that, and it has to be solely for that purpose of building credit. And
Okay.
so that only that one trust is going to have a DUNS.
So the trust is only to build credit, but but it's the same. It is the same trust that the business is in.
So it doesn't have to be known.
Oh.
So me personally, I would not
Oh.
build, I would not have any assets in the business trust that I'm using to build credit.
Okay.
And an LLC is an asset.
Got it. Okay. That answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you. And I did sign up for the affiliate. So.
Yay. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. I'm so glad to hear that.
All right. See you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow. All right. Next we have JC, and then we have Namir, and we are all done for today, everyone.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
I'm fantastic, JC. How are you?
Unfortunately, I missed today's meeting because I had to step out of the office. But I only have one question. I mean, I'm just gonna watch the video later.
Okay.
So I just have one question on this PDF that you sent us yesterday. I printed it out and it says on number 4, it says, who is the grantor? And it says the grantor can be whoever, but it is important that the grantor does not have a SSN, which is Social Security number, right?
So the PDF that you're referring to is for what?
It was on yesterday's email.
I
So
know,
I think
but what is the purpose of that PDF?
it says for retrieving 98 series tax ID number.
Yeah, so I didn't teach on that. So
Oh,
that
okay.
is for grantors that do not have Social Security. That is just that's not everyone's situation or case.
Okay.
So if your grantor has an SSN or a TIN, then they're going to go down the route that I went through.
Oh, okay. So this has nothing to do with me in particular.
If
as
it's
of right
not,
now.
right, so if it's not applicable to you, then you don't go by those guidelines.
Okay. All right. That was it. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome, JC. All right, next we have Namir. Hey, Namir, long time no see. Where you been?
Oh, you sound like somebody mama girl.
What? Namir, you in trouble. I didn't
I
see you
know,
last
I
month or the
know.
month before.
Oh my goodness, I know I am. Listen, even coming on here, I felt like that. And you said it right off the gate. Well, I'm just, I'm checking in. Just been a lot going on. You know how it can be sometimes.
Of course.
Um,
I got
but
a lot
one thing
going on too. I'm trying to like run for cover over here.
oh my goodness, well, yeah, but I'm here. How about that?
Yes,
How
I'm
about
so
that?
glad.
I
I'm
am
so
here.
glad to see you.
Listen, I stay close to the fire. I'm telling you. Oh my goodness, Empress. Oh my goodness. Listen, so I have like just been like just sending people, the 7 ways of wealth, man, like, and just get on there. All you gotta do is just sit there. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just get pulled in and pulled into this stewardship training that you're doing. And it's just beautiful. Like the man said, the community. So my thing been kind of like something like he been going through. I told you, like with myself, I don't have a lot of people in my community that's like, on it like this. So it's kind of like just structuring it and just trust. I might have some trust issues too now.
Oh, for sure, right? Yeah, that's the
I
truth
think we
right
all
there.
do.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely gearing up for December though. Yes, that's for sure. You know what I mean? So I'm just holding on to that. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
how that is. And
Yeah.
and then you know, somebody told me they're gonna be my grantor. I don't know who that was, but
Right.
we're
And
gonna make
where
sure.
are they? We gotta find them.
But I know we're gonna make sure we lock them in. But I'm there. You know, I am. You know, I'm trying to be like you. So I'm a little more deeper on it. But I'm learning like all these different questions, and for me to tap back in right now and like still get some, I'm like, man, this is awesome. I love you, girl.
Thank you, Namir.
You know what
Thank
I'm
you,
telling
thank
you?
you, thank you.
Yeah, so keep up the good work, man. Oh my goodness, you and your team is awesome. And
Thank
this
you. I
just for
appreciate
anybody that's on there. Listen, man, she is like Mama Tina, Mama Christina, man. So I am back. I am back. And I look, if I don't be on the Zoom, just know I'm gonna be there in person, man. That
Yay.
trip. Are you gonna talk about the trip before the evening is out?
I'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, yes, okay. Oh, my bad. I might be spilling the beans.
Yeah, you spilling the beans. The pot is boiling over. It's a mess over here in the kitchen.
Lucky I'm a chef too now, okay?
Yeah, that part. Right? You need to cook for
But
the
yeah,
community, Namir.
but oh my goodness, peace and love though, man. Keep up the great work. So
Thank you.
I
Thank
hope that make up for my absence.
Yes, it sure does. It
I'm
sure
gonna pull
does.
up present. I'm gonna pull up in the present. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. See, we
Yeah.
here to hold you accountable. So when you go missing, I'm like, but where you been? Right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's been so, I'm telling you, like, you know, your personal life, just trying to balance things is, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I know how that
What
is.
man, that's why I definitely need to
Work
get with the
life
school of bosses. I definitely need to get with the school of bosses too now. I already know.
balance. Yes. Thank you, Namir. All right,
Yes,
guys. So
peace
we
and
so
love.
we we leaving. We leaving. It's time to get off the call. We've been here since 11 o'clock. So okay, so I just want to give you guys the homework for tonight. So we are concluding day 4 of the Wealthy Trustee Workshop. And you guys have homework. The homework is to finalize your asset inventory list, please, because tomorrow we are going to hit the ground running with protecting your assets. So we are going to review the asset inventory list. Then we're going to go ahead and go through the steps that it takes in order to transfer real estate into our trust. We're going to go through the steps that it takes to transfer our vehicles into the trust. We're going to go through the steps that it takes to transfer our businesses into the trust. And then lastly, our educator is coming in and she's going to teach us about infinite banking. So how to be your own bank with the life insurance policies and how to have the trust be the owner, the payer of the premiums, as well as the beneficiary, and you be the insured or anyone that is associated with your trust. Okay. So we do have a lot planned for you for tomorrow. So go ahead and finalize your asset inventory list so that you know which assets are going to go inside the trust and which assets are going to remain outside of the trust. Okay. So with that being said, I will see you here tomorrow. You're going to receive an email at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with a Zoom link, the resources and templates that you're going to need for tomorrow. We are also going to apply for the EIN for the private family trust. So if you need any information so that you're able to get the EIN as far as your iPostal, as far as your virtual address, go ahead, and your virtual phone number, go ahead and get those things as well. And I will see you here on Zoom at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a blessed and highly favored day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You
Bye.
too, honey.
Thank
Bye.
you, Lisa.
Bye, honey.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Christina,
Yeah. Thank
you're the
you.
greatest girl.
Thank you.
Echo
Thank
that one.
you.
Yes,
Bye,
she is.
everyone.
Bye.